On the Han River, Tesan gazed across the bridge and pondered. He had worked hard and dedicated himself to become a full-time employee, only for the company to go bankrupt. Looking down at the flowing river below, Tesan contemplated jumping in. But someone stopped him from acting on this thought. Curious, he looked over. On the other side of the bridge's edge, a shop owner also contemplated jumping. Below, the police were patrolling and earnestly advising him not to do something foolish. They said that life is long, and one should not think of suicide over a small mistake. The shop owner seemed to take the police's advice to heart, crying out loud about his miserable life. Tesan, watching this failed suicide drama, realized that suicides were common on this river. He understood that even if he jumped, life would continue for others without any impact. Disheartened by city life, Tesan wondered if he should return to the countryside to raise fish and grow vegetables. Stopping at a red light, he saw a boy engrossed in playing games on his phone. Tesan envied the boy's carefree life, focused only on eating and studying without worrying about money. However, the boy, absorbed in his game, carelessly crossed the road without paying attention to the traffic lights. Tesan found this behavior of modern kids fascinating. Suddenly, a speeding white car was heading straight towards the boy. Tesan looked at the boy, who was still oblivious to the danger, his face buried in his phone. The car didn't slow down and continued speeding forward. The boy kept walking and playing, unaware of the danger. Realizing the imminent threat, Tesan shouted to alert the boy and ran forward to push him out of the way. The car, showing no intention of swerving or braking, continued its rapid course. It was too late for the boy to react, so Tesan risked his life to push him out of the way. With a crash, Tesan was hit and killed. His body was thrown far, along with fragments of the car's windshield. Before dying, Tesan realized he had not done anything significant for his parents. He wondered if his parents would receive any compensation if he died in an accident, hearing a voice calling him foolish. He was pulled into an undefined space, hanging in the air before a shadowy figure surrounded by a halo. The figure was an old man with white hair and beard, wearing a large bead necklace. Tesan, confused, asked who the man was and why he was suspended in the air, feeling utterly disoriented. He immediately assumed it was the Grim Reaper. The old man denied this foolish thought, revealing himself as Tesan's ancestor. Tesan was shocked, wondering why his ancestor looked like this, scolding himself for disrespecting his elders. The ancestor was furious, thinking his descendant was well behaved. He had considered sending Tesan to heaven, but reports of Tesan's misbehavior and disrespect towards his lineage reached him. Despite Tesan's misbehavior, the ancestor decided to give him another chance. Tesan, covering his ears, dared not cough or make a sound. In the end, his ancestor decided to give him a second chance at life. But there was one condition: Tesan had to live an unbalanced life, not showing himself as a nobleman by forgiving his enemies. Anyone with the intention of bullying him should be taught a lesson, as there would be no forgiveness for anyone. Tesan didn't understand a word of what his ancestor was saying, his face expressing complete bewilderment. The ancestor threatened that if Tesan continued to live a timid life, he would come down himself to deal with this hapless descendant and force him to live and relive this life for another 5,000 years. Before Tesan could fully grasp the situation, he was thrown into an undefined abyss. He fell straight down to the place where he had just been hit by a car. Tesan screamed in protest, questioning why his ancestor had promised to save him. His spirit returned to his unrecognizable, motionless body lying on the street. The clock was ticking continuously. A hand reached out to turn off the annoying alarm. This hand belonged to a young teenager. The teenager woke up, confused about his surroundings. On a day in August 2020, Tesan, then 32 years old, had been hit by a car and suffered a severe head injury. His ancestor had given him a chance to become young again. He was back to his youth, living the life of a miserable teenager who had never experienced love. Tesan couldn't believe it and pinched his cheek to see if it was a dream. If this wasn't a dream, then the memories like the Mid-Autumn Festival of 2006, when his hands were still strong from the struggles of youth, were real. He was amazed. His body felt exactly as he remembered from his memories. He calculated his age, figuring out that he was now 18, an age where he didn't have to fear anything. It seemed that his ancestor wasn't bluffing. Memories of his 32 years of life gradually returned. Memories of friends, of those who had wronged him, and of past romances became as vivid as a dream. Now back at this age, he still had to go to school. He recalled his school days, the time spent at internet cafes playing LOL with friends while eating instant noodles, and dozing off in class, which resulted in poor academic performance. Surprisingly, he could still remember everything clearly, even the answers to exams. It was impossible for this to be a dream. He remembered a law exam he had once taken, and his past efforts to study for financial advisor, stock, and bond certifications to get a job. He was well versed in the knowledge of domestic and international stocks. This memory and knowledge were enough. Tesan remembered that his ancestor had promised him a gift. He looked around the room for the gift left by his ancestor. Suddenly, a light appeared behind him. The light was so bright that he couldn't open his eyes, truly a special gift from his ancestors. A voice instructed Tesan to sit down and cross his legs. When he opened his eyes, he saw a crow. Or rather, a crow perched on the head of an old man. The old man said he would transfer the 5 jewels of the Tai Chi to Tesan. The problem was that he was still in his room but had been transported in front of an old, frail man on a very high rock. The old man introduced himself as the head of the Xian Xian Medical Institute, named Cha Jiang Xian. Tesan was surprised by the old man's identity. Not wanting to waste time, the old man instructed Tesan to immediately start cultivating the Yuan realm, warning him of the trouble he would face if discovered. Tesan was still utterly confused. He had no idea about the Xian Xian Medical Institute, what cultivating the Yuan realm meant, or anything about the divine dragon. All of this was completely foreign to him. Jiang Xian praised the firmness of Tesan's muscles and asked how he achieved it. Tesan was surprised that his muscles, developed only from occasionally exercising, were complimented by the old man. Jiang Xian also warned him to stop watching pornographic films all the time, as it was ruining him. Jiang Xian advised Tesan not to keep eating instant noodles, as they are bad for the blood. Understandably, as a poor student, Tesan could only afford instant noodles. Jiang Xian then told Tesan to close his eyes and start training immediately. Tesan felt helpless. He looked around and thought this place was too dangerous for practicing any sort of cultivation. He couldn't be patient with this nonsense any longer. Did he even know the 3 core pillars of cultivation: speed, endurance, and perseverance? Convinced by the soundness of these principles, Tesan sat down and began to meditate. He thought this was easy, having seen it in movies and martial arts novels. Jiang Xian scolded Tesan for practicing improper techniques that could harm his bones, behaving like a nagging old man. The transmission session began, and Jiang Xian surprisingly sat behind Tesan. Tesan felt the power of the divine dragon being transferred from Jiang Xian's hands to his back. Jiang Xian promised to transfer all his powers to Tesan. Once Tesan grasped the minor heavenly cycle, he had to discover the truth on his own. Tesan still didn't understand what to do. Jiang Xian could only start the transmission. A stream of light from Qigong emerged from Jiang Xian's hand. Tesan felt a surge of strength being transferred into his body. Jiang Xian accelerated the pace of the Qigong transfer. Tesan felt a wave-like sensation on his back and started to experience pain. Jiang Xian told him to endure it, as greater pain meant greater power. Tesan silently endured, feeling like he was about to collapse. His veins swelled and screamed for relief. Tesan yelled out, overwhelmed by the strength flowing into him. He fainted, his eyes rolling back, and his body collapsing from the immense qigong energy. Tesan was teleported back to his room, lying on a soaked mattress. He wondered if this was the agonizing feeling people often talked about. He breathed heavily, sweat pouring non-stop. His body was covered in red veins, expelling all the harmful toxins. The qi from the old man made his nerves feel like they were burning. Tesan's blood vessels swollen as if to burst, but Jiang Xian didn't stop, and tears and snot flowed continuously as the pain and power increased. Tesan screamed enough, but the old man kept transferring the power from morning until night without a break. The 5 elements Tai Chi fist was a difficult martial art to master, but Tesan managed to learn it all. He confirmed that the old man wasn't lying. He had comprehended the entire 5 jewels Tai Chi fist. Moreover, without asking anything, the old man hinted that he was the #1 disciple of a martial arts faction. He was a master who could fight for 4 days and 3 nights non-stop against the leader of the Huashan faction, ultimately defeating him and winning a competition organized by the Jade Emperor. It sounded impressive, right? Tesan looked at his sweat-drenched clothes. Tesan marveled at the greatness of the 5 elements Tai Chi fist. He had never sweated so much in his life. Despite the old man transferring energy to him all day, the time outside seemed unchanged. So returning from this secret realm was not a problem. Tesan looked at his computer and then at the wallpaper, sensing the poverty around him. The modem that provided Wi-Fi was still functional. However, the computer had only 6 GB of RAM, a 4 MB graphics card, and a 10 GB hard drive, filled with pirated software. Returning to the past felt like entering a museum in Tesan. The room smelled terrible, and he needed to clean it up. Outside his room, someone called him to come and eat. Tesan, come down for breakfast, you need to eat. These words are incredibly familiar to you. Even though you've heard them your whole life, they still warm your heart. Your mother is the only one by your side when you fail or feel down. She always tells you to eat all your meals. Don't just eat fast food. Tesan says he will shower first. His mother urges him to hurry before the food gets cold. In the bathroom, as he takes off his shirt, he looks in the mirror and sees he has grown taller. His body feels purified. Standing under the shower, Tesan feels lighter, his skin smoother. The weather is nice today. Walking on the old wooden floor, Tesan feels comfortable. He looks out at the garden, tirelessly tended by his mother. Outside, there is his father's old tractor. Their house, passed down through 10 generations, is why he lives and grows up in the countryside. His mother's voice calls from behind, bringing food. Tesan comments on the beautiful day. His gentle mother tells him to hurry or the food will get cold. He sees his mother, looking frail from working in the fruit garden since morning, yet she's always the most beautiful at his school's parent meetings. Tears well up in Tesan's eyes, and he rushes to hug his mother. She is surprised by his action, noting that he's grown but still hugs her like this. While crying, Tesan compliments his mother's beauty. She asks why he is crying. Tesan's mother, a graduate of the prestigious Hongji Fine Arts University, only attended by South Korea's finest artists, once said she never had to touch grass before marriage, yet now she's become a farmer. Tesan compliments her beauty again, and she teasingly says that only his father is blind. While hugging her, Tesan tells her not to overwork herself, noting she doesn't look like a typical rural woman. She pats him, saying, without farmers, there'd be nothing to eat. Tesan praises his father for being lucky to marry her, joking whether she betrayed her country in a past life to be with him. His mother laughs, suggesting maybe she was a princess who betrayed her country in a past life. It's been a long time since he's seen her laugh like this. While embracing her, Tesan promises to give her a happy life in the future. His mother jokingly tells him to eat a lot if he loves her. Tesan apologizes for hugging her without his father's permission. She laughs, saying his father will be jealous. Then, Tesan and his mother sit down to eat in the cool breeze of the countryside. After inviting his mother to eat, Tesan serves himself a bowl of rice, enjoying a sensation he wouldn't have felt if not for his reincarnation. He doesn't forget to praise his mother's cooking as the best. He suggests she should open a restaurant to compete with others, claiming it would be a hit. Hearing him mention being tipsy, his mother suspects he's been drinking secretly. Tesan admits he's grown up, so drinking is normal. His mother tapped his head and said Tesan is just like his father. He remembers being quite a drinker in college. But now, rejuvenated, he doesn't even know what alcohol tastes like. His mother sternly warns him against touching alcohol. However, looking around the house, he sees mice everywhere, the household items are worn out, and the electrical appliances are outdated. Tesan laments how poor their house is. Seeing a mouse near the door, he realizes he can't continue like this. He must earn money. So, Tesan offers to wash the dishes. His mother teases that if a person suddenly changes their behavior, they might be nearing their end. She tells him to let her do it and not to get involved. Tesan recalls washing dishes during his military service. His mother questions when he served in the military, to which he just smiles and tries to change the subject. She asks if he and his father are conspiring to tease her, but he immediately denies it. At this moment, he realizes he's been a terrible son, never having washed dishes before. Tesan vows to make his mother happy. She remarks that fathers and sons always say that. Because his mother isn't in good health, she doesn't work in the afternoons. While she sleeps, Tesan takes the opportunity to clean the house, wiping the floors, clearing the musty and foul smells. He also washes clothes and blankets, cleans all the windows, and takes out the trash. He knows that his father is currently borrowing money. His father, an apple farmer, understands the importance of fertilizer and pesticides. Organic food isn't very popular in South Korea, as few can afford such fruits, which taste bland. Tesan tries an apple and immediately spits it out, thinking these apples are of poor quality. But his father's debts are high. His father has a fruit orchard and 2 rice fields inherited from Tesan's grandmother 3 years ago. Tesan knows that in a few months, all these assets will be sold to pay off debts. Then, his family will be ruined, and his father's relatives will never visit again. Tesan feels sorry for his father. He wants to find a way to keep the orchard and the rice fields. The problem now is money. Tesan remembers stock market charts from the past. Although he only saw them a couple of times, he remembers them vividly. He is surprised by his own memory and begins to question the significance of his return to the past. The idea of him traveling back to 2006 seems crazy. In this country, he wonders what the point of owning stocks is, as the market has already bottomed out. Who would lend money to a high school student like him, and part-time jobs don't pay much? With this situation, he can't make enough money to help his parents. Returning to his room, Tesan realizes that things are not looking good. Looking at his outdated computer, he understands that stocks could make him rich quickly, but his current situation doesn't allow it. This useless machine only allows him to type text. Looking at pirated software, he notices a web novel site. The God of Wealth has arrived, the God of Wealth has arrived. Tesan decides to write 2 works, Magic Warrior and Thunder Sword. These were the hottest works in South Korea at that time. The first series was published in 2007 by Jang Hee-jae, and by 2020, it had 59 volumes. This number kept increasing, but Tesan remembered every detail of the novel. He typed continuously, not bothering to change the titles, as he believed in the rule of first come, first served. The story is about the main character helping the female lead after her father's death leads to her family's downfall. It sounds like an interesting novel. All the content continuously appears in Tesan's head, clear as day. Tesan feels proud, thinking he is a genius. Thus, a masterpiece is written by him, with some details adjusted to make the novel even more authentic. He keeps typing, quickly finishing the entire work. First, he puts the work in the free category. Once the work explodes in popularity, it will bring him a lot of money. He uploads the first chapters of the novel. Indeed, he has stolen a novel from the future, reminding him of a saying, "Money has no eyes, whoever comes first owns it." His shouting even wakes his mother. Inside the house, a lazy guy is eating noodles while praising the main character of Tesan's story for having some guts. He realizes this is the best novel he has ever read. He is so enthusiastic that he keeps pointing out how the main character in the story knows how to care for the female lead. He reads 10 chapters alone, thinking if Tesan publishes a book, he will buy it immediately. He then goes online to pre-order and recommends it to everyone. Tesan's story explodes on the internet. It becomes the most uploaded serial, topping the charts with only 10 chapters released. At the publishing house, everyone is reviewing the fans' comments. With only 10 chapters, the novel is already being printed in large quantities. The chief editor is puzzled about printing so many with only 10 chapters. A subordinate thinks it's an interesting novel with a solid plot. It will be a bestseller. Some believe the author must be famous, hence the decision to change the author's pseudonym for the new work. The editor says that fantasy novels are now better than game novels. This magic warrior has great potential. The editor suggests buying the rights to this novel. Yesterday, she read it and found the main character very compelling. They have already contacted the author, offering him terms. If he is a newcomer, they can share 8% of the profits from 4,000 copies. The chief editor thinks that's too much. Yesterday's negotiation was only for 5% on 5,000 copies. The first proposal seems better, so the chief editor instructs her to contact the author immediately. At another publishing house, an employee asks the chief editor if he has read the trending novel. He thinks it's very good. The employee feels the novel is well written and has great potential. The chief editor sees it as very promising and decides to publish it. He offers 10% on 6,000 copies. The employee fears this is too much and the publishing house won't agree, and if they find out about the contract with them, there will be an uproar. The chief editor confidently says he had a premonition that the novel would sell at least 10,000 copies. Seeing his boss so confident, the employee asserts that although they don't know the actual profit, this is definitely a phenomenon. The chief editor instructs him to contact the author immediately. At 3 a.m., on the mountain behind Tesan's house, his body can now endure longer during Qigong practice since his last fainting episode. His breathing becomes lighter. His entire body is enveloped by Qigong energy, continuously emitting light. He focuses his internal energy. His body breathes rhythmically. Various stances of martial arts keep appearing in Tesan's mind. He moves swiftly. Tesan leaps up, kicking, tearing through the air. He breathes rhythmically. Standing on the mountaintop, he feels his power is at its peak. With this, he will be unbeatable. Since he couldn't practice martial arts at home, he temporarily made a tent on top of a 500m high mountain. Just as predicted, up to 5 publishing companies contacted Tesan. That completes step 1. Now, he simply ignores them. The reason Tesan's novel became popular by 2021 is because it's humorous and irresistible to readers. Many publishers want to meet him in person. But, seeing many authors go bankrupt, Tesan can't rush into anything. He lets them know about him first. Online, there have been many authors who signed with publishing agents and ended up with regrettable outcomes. Tesan must be very cautious. Moreover, he saw Nemezia, the original publisher of his novel. As the sky looked like rain, Tesan wanted to take his mother out. He promised to treat her to a lavish meal, but she doubted he had the money. Seeing her son happy, she agreed. They were on their way to meet with Nemezia Publishing to discuss the contract. But Tesan, still a minor, was a bit worried because minors aren't legally allowed to enter agreements without a guardian. The law involves payment and penalties, so he needed his mother as a representative. Tesan helped his mother off the bus, telling her to be careful. His mother noticed his excessive care lately. Tesan suggested they have coffee first. When his mother asked if he had already had coffee, he joked about the weather being too hot for an iced Americano. They headed to a coffee shop. Standing in front of it, Tesan asked his mother if she trusted him. She assured him, saying, "Of course, my son." As they entered, the chief editor, mistaken for the author, was a bit disappointed. Tesan noted their punctuality, a positive sign. He asked if they were from Benai Media. They were surprised to see the author was a student. Tesan confidently affirmed his authorship, to his mother's astonishment. The editor and CEO couldn't believe Tesan was the author due to his young age. But his confidence and arrogant tone were unmistakable. They were impressed by Tesan's sharpness and demeanor. The editor and his assistant invited him to sit. Surprised by his youth, they asked his age. He replied that he was in his second year of high school, leaving them stunned. The CEO thought Tesan was no ordinary teenager, seemingly difficult to negotiate with. His mother asked who they were, and about the pseudonym Gogiver, leaving the assistant surprised. The editor was confused. Tesan noticed their controlled expressions and decided to tease them more. He asked if they were reluctant to sign with a high school student. His mother was clueless. The editor and CEO denied it, saying they would introduce themselves first. They introduced themselves as Choi Woo Koen and Hwang Seo-gu. Tesan smiled. He introduced himself as Jang Tesan. He turned to his mother, encouraging her to introduce herself, mentioning they were the CEO and chief editor of Night Media Publishing. She was astonished to hear about the publishing company. Tesan told his mother that he was going to sign a contract with them. The CEO handed over his business card. He reintroduced himself to Tesan's mother, calling Tesan writer John. Tesan was amused by this nickname. His mother was still amazed, wondering how her son had become a writer. Tesan asked his mother why he couldn't be a writer. His mother criticized his writing, doubting he could become a writer. She told him to focus on his studies instead of writing. The CEO and chief editor agreed with her. Tesan told his mother that he had posted a novel online during the holidays and asked for her permission to sign a contract with the publisher. She was shocked to learn that he would sign a contract. Tesan felt helpless as his mother had just promised to trust him till death, yet she seemed not to believe him. The CEO intervened in their conversation, saying Tesan's novel was very captivating. It had recently gained many fans. He insisted that she should believe in her son. The chief editor praised Tesan's novel as the best he had ever read. Hearing that the novel was about a magical warrior, his mother found it reasonable. Tesan proudly asked her if she was proud of having such a talented son. She looked at him, and he asked the publisher for a drink. They were startled, and his mother reminded him to speak politely. They immediately asked what the mother and son would like to drink. He cheerfully ordered an iced coffee and a bingsu. The chief editor went to place the order. Tesan asked the CEO if he had brought the contract. The CEO told him not to be impatient. Tesan said he was just curious. The CEO laid the contract on the table and told Tesan to take his time reading it. Tesan picked up the contract and read it attentively. When he reached the part about the publisher retaining copyright for 5 years with the option to renew, Tesan found it amusing. He looked young now, but he was already knowledgeable in legal matters. Tesan immediately asked the CEO to amend this clause and send it back to him. The CEO dismissed it, saying the secondary copyright was not a big deal. Other authors signed contracts like this. Tesan disliked this clause, insisting that the publisher could only print his work. Furthermore, if they wanted to publish abroad, they needed to discuss it with him. His mother and the CEO were both surprised. Tesan also demanded a $200 million advance. The CEO and chief editor were stunned by this amount. His mother was surprised by his decisiveness. Tesan also requested a guarantee fee and a 10% royalty for the first 6,000 copies. If the publisher wanted to sell rights, they had to inform him and send monthly royalties to Tesan's account. The CEO was sweating, saying Tesan was too hasty. The chief editor said no publisher would advance such a huge sum. High readership didn't guarantee long-term success. Tesan noticed they had brought a laptop in their bag. They were surprised when he mentioned this. Tesan gave them an option: if they didn't like his terms, they could refuse. Tesan presented a USB drive. The CEO and chief editor were amazed. Tesan explained that the USB contained drafts. They didn't expect it to have manuscripts inside. Tesan said there were 5 novel drafts on the USB. Tesan's mother was so surprised that she wondered if she was dreaming. Dreaming? This is just the beginning, Tesan said. I will bring you even more surprises. The CEO and chief editor read the novel Tesan had written on their computer. They were very surprised. Tesan was nonchalant, saying if it was good, they should just say so without making such expressions. The work was so good that the CEO begged Tesan to sign a contract with them. They agreed to pay him $20 million immediately to publish it. Tesan smartly thought it was a wise decision. The chief editor brought out a new contract. The CEO immediately amended the contract according to Tesan's wishes. His mother awaited Tesan's decision. Tesan asked them to correct the income tax declaration properly. When reselling, they must pay him as per the contract. The CEO assured Tesan they were ethical professionals. Tesan was unsure whether to trust them, but once the money was in his account, he had nothing to worry about. He was satisfied with the feeling of being a writer without losing any intelligence. Tesan's mother, acting as his legal representative, also had to sign the contract. After signing, the CEO immediately transferred $200 million into Tesan's account. His mother was so surprised that her mouth fell open. Tesan remembered a time when he nearly died with less than $2 million in his account. Now, he planned to gradually increase his savings. The CEO shook Tesan's hand, grateful for signing the contract. Tesan happily noted that it was beneficial for both parties. Tesan told his mother they could leave, but the CEO and chief editor invited them to dine with them. Tesan postponed it for another time, as his mother was not comfortable dining with strangers, and he casually mentioned that money was just trash to him now. Outside, it was still raining. In front of the cafe, Tesan's mother bowed to the CEO and chief editor, apologizing for any rudeness, not understanding what was happening. They waved it off, saying working with Tesan was their fortune. The chief editor asked Tesan how many volumes he planned to write, suggesting maybe around 10 based on the current content. Tesan answered 60 volumes. Both the CEO and chief editor were shocked. Tesan remembered up to volume 59 and thought it would be cruel to the readers to have only 20 volumes. They wondered if 60 volumes were too many. Tesan assured them not to worry, there would be 60 volumes. The publisher said they would see how things go. They agreed to discuss with Tesan again, saying even if there were 100 volumes, they would be happy. Looking at the sky, Tesan felt there was much to do that day. His mother asked where they were going now. Tesan said they would stop by the bank. His mother wondered what business he had there. Tesan replied it was very important. His mother was bewildered by the sudden turn of events, not understanding how her son became a writer and earned 200 million. Tesan said he would start working tomorrow afternoon. So, he needed to open a bank account first. His mother asked if they should discuss it with his father, noting that he was still a dependent child. With this 200 million, Tesan could pay off his father's debt and interest in full, but he didn't want to rush into using this money. Tesan asked his mother if she believed in him. She said, of course, but Tesan told her to wait a month, and then he would talk to his father himself. This money was just the beginning, it would become a golden egg for his family. His mother replied that she would believe in him. The sky had cleared. Tesan said he would treat his mother to instant noodles. His mother reminded him to add meat and sweet and sour sauce since he was wealthy now. The sun had just risen. Tesan, on the mountain behind his house, continued to meditate. He recalled everything, with all financial indices appearing in his mind. That preparation was enough, now it was time to head to school. Looking at the computer and reading the numbers, Tesan knew the game was in his hands, he would drain the capitalists. Watching the buying and selling of stocks, Tesan found it adorable. Now, this was his playground. He laughed, saying the capitalists were doomed. The market unit price was 2,250, with small-cap stocks at 50 billion. This situation would happen a few more times. Tesan had to act immediately. As a former stockbroker, he was skilled at this. When 20,000 shares were bought at an average price of 2,500, they would be ruined. At a certain company, an employee urgently called the department head because all the money in the trading room was withdrawn. 20,000 shares were sold off. The department head asked if anyone had noticed the stock closing. The employee turned back, asking what to do. The head, sweating, said they could only wait for a notification and divide the work for now. He cursed, wondering who the lucky person was. Now everyone had to be careful not to lose everything. The department head felt like this person was a ghost, holding every secret, wondering who he was. Indeed, a lucky guy. He estimated that after this campaign, the person would earn about 100 million, at least bleeding 10 people dry. Back at home, Tesan was thrilled with the influx of money. In 3 days, he had made 460 million. Even if he ran out of money, he still had 260 million left. Tesan wondered if he should continue playing, he wasn't satisfied yet. Ku also felt it wasn't enough, he was just getting started. In his previous life as a broker, he hadn't used as many tricks as this. Next week, there will be an announcement about a new drug development. Then, the stock chart would stabilize. He would withdraw all his capital. In the winning stock companies, after all, the profits weren't going anywhere. Tesan hadn't expected that his knowledge and the skyrocketing stock values he learned as a broker would be so useful. From now on, the stock market will be lively. The tricks were already in Tesan's hands. It would be crazy not to seize them. Outside the bookstore, everyone was looking for Tesan's new novel. People were discussing its plot and characters. People passing by, hearing the name of the novel, became curious and placed pre-orders, fearing they might miss out. At Tesan's house, his family was gathered for breakfast. Tesan's mother noticed that his father seemed to have something to say. His father silently continued eating his rice, insisting that there was nothing wrong and that they should continue their meal. Tesan's younger sibling, noticing their father's pallor, worriedly suggested he should get a medical checkup. Tesan felt it was time to say goodbye to his poor fate. He slammed his chopsticks down on the table. He praised his mother's cooking as the pinnacle of perfection, while everyone else silently reprimanded him for his lack of subtlety. Tesan winked at his mother, telling her not to worry. She understood. Tesan was going to cheer up his father. He asked the family if they had time, sparking curiosity among his siblings about what he planned to do. Tesan's mother asked him worriedly if there was a problem. Tesan decided to treat the whole family to a lavish meal. His twin siblings didn't believe him. His father seemed hesitant, and Tesan knew what his father was worried about. So, he asked his mother to bring his father along, and she agreed. Tesan told his father to bring his ID, and his siblings to bring their student cards, but the family didn't understand why they needed to bring these documents. Tesan mysteriously said they would be needed. His siblings asked if he had been secretly working part-time, to which Tesan replied that children shouldn't ask too many questions. Tesan was only 2 years older than them. Finally, the time had come for Tesan to reveal that he was a writer, and the family went to the city together. His siblings were extremely excited. They went to look at cell phones. It was 2006, and having a cell phone then was impressive. Tesan's sibling admired each model, marveling at their beauty. Hearing the names of each type, Tesan smiled. Tesan's father said they wouldn't buy any, so they should move on. Tesan told his siblings to pick whatever they liked, as he would take care of it. His siblings asked again to confirm, and Tesan agreed. His father was astonished by Tesan's extravagance. His father didn't want his young children to use such expensive items, even though Tesan had money from his novel royalties. Tesan wanted to buy flip phones for his parents, which were quite trendy. His mother wanted to choose one immediately, but his father seemed to want to stop her. His mother chose several models, asking if his father liked them, while Tesan picked out a sleek black one. He asked to bring everything to the checkout. Since his siblings were underage, he instructed the employee to put the purchases under his parents' names. The total came to 20 million. The whole family was shocked by Tesan's lavish spending, and the employee even offered a free pre-order service. Afterward, Tesan took the family out for lunch. Meanwhile, at the stock company, things weren't going well. The company director couldn't understand what had happened to the trading system that morning. All the money from the trading floors had been withdrawn, totaling 1 billion. They wondered who could have played such a trick on them, guessing it must be some billionaire. The director doesn't know what to do except curse at the worthless person with no morals. The employees ask what should be done. He is so angry that he gathers all his stocks for the company. Suddenly, Tesan stops walking. Everyone at home asks him what's wrong. He wants to lead everyone into a store, but it turns out to be a car dealership. The owner, seeing them, warmly welcomes them. Tesan decides to buy a new car for his family's safety. The highlight of this car dealership is a white car, the most expensive one there, which Tesan had noticed before. It's the newest SUV model. The whole family sweats upon seeing it. The mother just admires its beauty, while the father is contemplative. With this car, it would be easier for Tesan's siblings to go to school. Tesan's father wonders what got into him today, and his siblings are excited about being driven to school in that car. However, the father is reluctant due to the family's financial difficulties. Tesan tells his father not to worry. His mother hands over some savings that Tesan just gave her. Inside, there's 500 million. Shocked, they wonder how he got so much money. His mother tells his father that their son has grown up. Tesan asks his father to trust him. His father always believes in his son. Tesan understands his father's feelings. The phone purchase alone is enough to cover this month's interest payments. He doesn't want his father to worry anymore and decides to write a new chapter for the family. Tesan asks the salesperson if there is another car in stock. If not, he will take the display model. He tells his siblings to get in, and they go shopping. Tesan decides to become the pillar of the family. Everyone is happy. Thus, their outing concludes. Tesan puts on his uniform, wondering how long it has been since he graduated. He waits for the bus at the station, ready to start his high school life. The bus and the scenery remain unchanged. Tesan finds his usual seat and puts on his headphones. He always took the bus to school, listening to music. Today, Seo John Company will go public. Even though he's going to school, Tesan's investments will automatically increase. His assets are now over 1 billion. Tesan has set up automatic stock trading. Typically, stock traders don't invest in stable stocks. They bet everything on skyrocketing stocks and enjoy the fluctuations. They dive into this risky business, which expert manipulators exploit. Tesan is one of these players. For them, charts mean nothing. In the end, they drain the stock players dry. However, Tesan, armed with knowledge and future information, won't let any opportunity slip by, no matter how skilled the opponent is. The students on the bus start complaining about the end of their vacation. Tesan recognizes them immediately. The tan girl is Mixon, who always boasts about her travels. Beside her is Nazan, her friend who is always jealous of Mixon. They both see Tesan and are surprised. Tesan also looks back. When these mothers see something beautiful, their eyes light up. They all stare at Tesan because he is very handsome. Tesan offers to hold their bags if they are too heavy. Indeed, there's no folly like being foolish over boys. They immediately hand their bags to Tesan. Other girls start to notice him too. They find him familiar and everyone tries to figure out who he is. Even the older male students are curious. The older girls are all smitten by his good looks, but none can remember who he is. These high school girls are so naive. In just a few years, they will shamelessly chase after handsome boys. The bus stops at the next station. Another girl gets on the bus. Tesan notices her. She is the girl he most wanted to meet, the one he has always admired from afar. She is Li Zhizhi, Tesan's first love, the one he secretly adores. Everyone in the class is surprised by Tesan's transformation. He looks handsome as if he has just returned from a thoughtful journey. When he arrives at school, all the memories of encountering his old love suddenly shatter. Tesan also fondly remembers his mischievous friends. Tesan is always sniffling due to a runny nose. Zhong has shaved his head, determined to study, but his grades are still poor. Huan-chan is already going bald at a young age. Zazhong just eats and shows no brotherly love. Bonsuk always claims to be a poet and pretends to be rich. Someone asks if Tesan secretly took his father's growth medicine because he's so tall. Tesan jokes that they should stop watching porn to grow taller. Tesan says he'd never give up his passion. Tesan challenges him to a fight. They start to physically resolve their argument. Tesan is so strong that Tesan begs for mercy. He asks if Tesan has been going to the gym because he's so strong. Being a high school student, Tesan naturally trains his body. Tesan wonders if Tesan is planning to compete in sports. Tesan says no. Outside the classroom, someone complains about the noise. A white-haired boy wearing glasses comes in and scolds them, asking if they can be quiet. This is Hong Sung-hun, and everyone is too scared to respond. Every environment has its bullies, those who only know how to oppress the weak. Sung-hun sees Tesan and is shocked. He notes that Tesan has grown tall. Tesan can't stand Sung-hun's mocking laughter, as this malicious boy even caused him depression in the past. Hong Sung-hun is a member of a third-rate gang called the Scorpions and acts like a big shot at school. When Tesan doesn't respond, Sung-hun angrily insults him, asking if he knows how to speak. Tesan approaches and mocks him for being jealous. Sung-hun can't believe Tesan is standing up to him. The whole class is shocked. Sung-hun mocks Tesan, saying that he must have missed getting beaten up during his absence. Tesan sarcastically surrenders, saying he wouldn't dare disrespect a dog. No, someone worse than a dog. The classmates are in disbelief. They ask Tesan if he's been hit in the head or something. Tesan feels it's time for revenge, to retaliate for the brutal beatings he endured in the past. Sung-hun, furious, tells him to say that again. It seems Tesan has grown bold enough to talk back, daring him to repeat his words. Tesan smiles naturally, finding the boy somewhat cute. For Sung-hun, physical strength is power. Suddenly, the door bursts open. The supervisor steps in and scolds the two for their behavior. The class teacher, expecting quiet study, is surprised to see them glaring at each other. Tesan explains they are just joking around after not seeing each other for a while. Sung-hun is infuriated by Tesan's antics in front of him. The teacher calls for order, telling the class to settle down and disperse the crowd. The classmates are relieved that they might avoid trouble, hoping Tesan doesn't say anything more. But unexpectedly, Tesan challenges Sung-hun to meet at lunch, even winking, hinting at a confrontation. Sung-hun is furious, feeling outsmarted by Tesan and vows revenge. The class loudly proclaims their determination to score high in the university entrance exams, like customers in a busy market. They joke that higher scores will lead to prettier wives. Sung-hun, sitting at the back, keeps staring at Tesan at the front. During the first break, everyone worries about Tesan, as Sung-hun is gathering his gang outside to confront him. In the second break, they ask Tesan if he's eaten something strange to be acting so bravely, reminding him that it's still possible to escape. By the third period, Tesan is still unmoved, causing even more concern among his classmates. They are too scared to go to lunch, fearing the confrontation with Sung-hun. They resent Tesan for potentially dragging them into trouble. Sung-hun's formidable reputation intimidates them, and they are surprised by Tesan's audacity. Tesan, unfazed, tells them to stop worrying so much. He assures them he's got their backs in tough times. Finally, Sung-hun arrives with his gang, all of them big and intimidating, as if ready to turn Tesan and his friends into punching bags. Tesan tells them to calm down, mocking Sung-hun's threats. He dares to confront them, surprising them with his boldness. Tesan tells them to shut up and follow him outside, not wanting to fight in the classroom. His friends are terrified, fearing for their safety. Tesan invites them for pizza afterward, as if unfazed by the imminent threat. Sung-hun, without further ado, calls his gang out. Tesan, under a clear sky and white clouds, knows he has to deal with this situation once and for all. He hands his phone to Dodong, seemingly preparing for something. The group surrounds Tesan's crew, with Dodong filming the scene. Sung-hun apologizes to his gang for the inconvenience caused by Tesan and promises to treat them afterward. Tesan asked Sung-hun a question. Sung-hun just complained, saying that this situation was a mess and couldn't be fixed. Tesan asked why he always bullied those who liked spicy food with him. Aren't we supposed to be friends? The question sounded crazy. Sung-hun had many reasons. He hated studying with those he considered inferior, despised those with dirt-filled heads, and loathed the guy who only had kimchi for breakfast. He was disgusted by the impoverished people like them, saying they were an eyesore. Tesan still hoped they could be friends, stating that beating and extorting money from friends was wrong. He wondered what Sung-hun's father, a prominent lawyer in the city council, would think of his son's behavior. Tesan thought Sung-hun should stop. Now, Tesan was going to bring up Sung-hun's father's reputation. Sung-hun told Tesan to mind his own business and not worry about his family matters. Sung-hun's father had said to trample on the inferior, hinting at problematic family education. It turned out this guy was bullying others using his father's influence. Even the principals and the management office's sons were familiar with Sung-hun's father, and a little money could smooth things over. Tesan begged Sung-hun to spare his friends. Sung-hun refused, insisting on maintaining their perceived social hierarchy. Sung-hun also suggested teaching them a lesson so they wouldn't dare speak up again. Tesan pleaded on behalf of his friends, but Sung-hun mocked him, questioning who he thought he was to make such demands. Tesan offered money, saying it was all part of his plan. Sung-hun agreed to let them off for $1 million. Tesan handed over the hard-earned money of his parents, hoping Sung-hun would spend it wisely. He pleaded again for his friend's sake. Sung-hun, seeing the amount, teased Tesan about suddenly being wealthy. Tesan continued to pretend, begging for mercy for his friends. Sung-hun responded with a mocking laugh and even hit Tesan, causing him to bleed from the mouth. Tesan had anticipated this but still acted hurt, continuing the charade. His friends were shocked and panicked upon seeing him injured. Tesan wiped the blood away and looked at Dodong. Dodong understood and stopped recording on his phone. It was time to turn the tables. Tesan called Sung-hun's group over. He was ready to confront them. Tesan warned Sung-hun that this wasn't over yet. Sung-hun didn't understand what Tesan was planning. Tesan mocked Sung-hun, saying if his ancestors knew about his behavior, they would be appalled. Sung-hun was angered, accusing Tesan of not knowing his place. Tesan retorted that Sung-hun's ancestors must have committed terrible deeds to have a descendant like him. Sung-hun's group, following his lead, prepared to attack. But when Tesan struck the first one, sending him flying, the group hesitated, shocked by Tesan's strength. Tesan apologized, realizing he didn't know his own strength. His friends were equally surprised. Sung-hun urged his group to attack, but Tesan was ready, knowing he was just defending himself. Sung-hun ordered his group to beat Tesan. Taein stared intently at them. As the fist was about to hit his face, he dodged and punched the attacker in the head. One after another, they came at him with sticks. Tesan stepped back, dodging the sticks aimed at him. He swiftly kicked the heads of the two leading attackers, making them dizzy. They began to fear him. Whoever approached was punched by Tesan, breaking their teeth. Sung-hun started to hesitate. Tesan need another one. Despite Sung-hun's bravado, urging everyone to attack, whoever approached ended up with broken teeth and jaws. Tesan fought more fiercely. They started using steel rods against him, but he broke all their sticks. Sung-hun couldn't believe that this was the same Tesan he knew. As Tesan broke their sticks, he advised them not to play with dangerous things. The group was in disbelief, unable to accept that Tesan alone was overpowering them all. When Tesan forced them to kneel and reflect, he turned to Sung-hun. It was Sung-hun's turn now. Even facing defeat, Sung-hun still insulted Tesan, vowing not to leave him in peace. He considered Tesan a nobody. Tesan approached Sung-hun, who pleaded for him not to come closer. Tesan slapped him. Sung-hun couldn't believe how frightening Tesan had become. Tesan told him that this was the result of his own actions, experiencing what he had done to others. Sung-hun thought Tesan would leave him alone, but Tesan vowed never to forgive him. Tesan showed his middle finger, indicating that Sung-hun's words were worthless to him. As Sung-hun, defiant even in defeat, threatened Tesan, he attempted to punch Tesan. Tesan hit Sung-hun's fist directly. Sung-hun's hand bones broke, causing him to scream in agony. His fingers shattered, Sung-hun was in unbearable pain. He started to roll around, getting hit, and swore to destroy Tesan's family. Tesan remarked that Sung-hun hadn't had enough, likening his words to a famous line from a future war movie against evil. Sung-hun was clueless. Tesan hit him so hard that Sung-hun started bleeding. Tesan's friends began to fear him, not believing what he was capable of. Blood splattered everywhere. Tesan beat Sung-hun beyond recognition. Tesan felt it was a shame to stop now and wondered if he should continue the charade. He asked Dodong to bring his phone. Everyone responded promptly. Tesan dialed 113, calling the police to report a bloody fight behind the school. There were about 20 injured people, necessitating a call to 119 for emergency services. Tesan added fuel to the fire. At the hospital, one screamed about a non-functional hand, and chaos ensued. The emergency room was filled with patients bandaged up because of Tesan's actions. In the VIP room, Sung-hun was diagnosed with a 16-week recovery period, with all his hand bones and joints shattered. Even after successful surgery, it would be difficult for him to move. Sung-hun's father demanded to know where the culprit was. The nearby marketplace was confused. Sung-hun's father insisted on knowing the location of the person responsible for his son's condition. He was determined to put him in jail. The marketplace owner mentioned that the police were already involved. The student who had caused this was also injured in the emergency room. Sung-hun's father couldn't believe a student was responsible. He questioned if it was impossible to arrest the student, outraged that his son had to suffer for life. Sung-hun's father demanded to meet with the school's administration. He was determined to make Tesan's family pay. In the intensive care unit, a police officer was investigating Tesan's identity. He asked why Tesan had acted that way, with Tesan not understanding. He asked again why Tesan had attacked those students. Tesan told him that he was overstepping, as clearly he was the victim and those thugs were the guilty ones. He was obviously attacked and had even become a patient. The police couldn't believe Tesan dared to deny it, saying that he had beaten them all up. The police warned that if he didn't confess, the investigation would uncover the truth anyway. The police were unaware that Tesan was recording the conversation. They kept asking why Tesan had attacked them, accusing him of disliking the senior students. They also accused him of bullying and extorting money, saying he couldn't claim they extorted him or that he borrowed money from friends. Tesan asked the police if they had taken a bribe, but the officer didn't dare admit it. Tesan questioned why he was only being interrogated. Moreover, as a minor, he pointed out that without a legal representative or guardian present, the inspector had no right to interrogate him as if he were a criminal. The police, infuriated, asked what about it. The officer grabbed Tesan by the collar, scolding him for being a snotty-nosed kid who didn't know his place. The officer shook him harder, saying he had encountered many spoiled kids like Tesan before. Tesan cried out, asking him to stop, and began to cry in fear, asking why he was being treated like that and requesting a different inspector. Tesan called for a nearby doctor for help. The doctors rushed over, asking what happened, and Tesan accused the police officer of trying to kill him. He complained that the officer treated him like a criminal. The doctor reprimanded the officer, asking if he was insane to treat a student and patient like that. He reminded the officer to be gentle during questioning and questioned if he would take responsibility if the patient suffered any consequences. The police officer didn't know how to respond. A nurse nearby alerted the doctor that Tesan seemed to have fainted. The doctor immediately called for help, preparing to lower blood pressure and move the patient. He instructed to get X-rays and an MRI to check for any head injuries in this emergency case. The doctor accused the police officer of assaulting the patient. At Tesan's school, the management announced that a bullying incident had occurred. Recently, the school's bullying situation had reached alarming levels. The principal demanded swift solutions, while the vice principal immediately suggested expelling Tesan for embarrassing over 30 students that day. Tesan's homeroom teacher disagreed, stating it was a case of 30 against 1. If punishment was to be given, the other students involved should also be punished. The board thought Tesan's teacher was defending him. The teacher insisted it wouldn't be fair to punish only Tesan. The principal suggested that all students involved in the incident should be expelled. The homeroom teacher argued for a more balanced solution than just expelling Tesan. The principal expressed concern about media coverage, fearing a significant stain on the school's reputation. However, he believed that strictly punishing the offending student alone would improve the school's image. In the hospital, Tesan was diagnosed with a concussion and prescribed 8 weeks of rest. This meant he could skip school and freely invest in stocks. He was staying in a quiet special care room. He felt that having a lot of money was simply for enjoyment. Tesan pretended to be slightly unwell to deceive everyone. Despite this, he managed to study all the subjects he needed through solution books and online lessons. He was simultaneously studying and playing the stock market, never resting his mind. Tesan was enjoying himself. His money kept increasing, reaching 700 million today, and still growing. For him, now was the time to work. A respectful person came in and addressed him as Tesan, asking how he was feeling. It was his lawyer, whom Tesan told not to be too formal, as he was just a high school student. This was their company's operational policy. Tesan had hired a lawyer named Ju Juntae, a top 3 lawyer in South Korea from the firm Samu. Money seemed to solve everything. Tesan advised him not to be too rigid. Juntae had been ousted from the organization for being too rigid. Previously, lawyer Ju was the deputy chief prosecutor at the district prosecution office. After retiring, he became a first-class public servant lawyer. Tesan told him that he hadn't cut ties with the organization yet. Juntae was surprised that Tesan knew about the organization, but Tesan said he didn't know much. Outside, there was a loud shouting. "Why is a district prosecutor here? If he stops me from investigating, he'll be charged with obstructing a public officer, understand?" Lawyer Juntae was hidden by Tesan, who then went outside, nodding in agreement. A policeman opened the door, accusing Tesan, saying his end was near. The prosecutor from the anti-crime division had come to arrest him. The policeman accused Tesan of pretending to be a victim. Throughout, he continuously accused Tesan, with the prosecutor also involved. The policeman called the situation an interrogation, claiming they had been bribed by someone named John. Tesan asked for the arrest warrant. The policeman shouted, dismissing the need for a warrant. Tesan felt the man was doomed and asked him to show his inspector's badge. A colleague named Kim Thwang told the policeman to show his badge. The colleague didn't like reprimanding the seemingly knowledgeable kid. He challenged Tesan, asking if he wanted to experience a real concussion. The policeman reluctantly showed his badge, revealing he was Prosecutor Kim Rong-Suc. Tesan realized this was a case of a corrupt public official. He again demanded the arrest warrant. The prosecutor asked if Tesan knew what an arrest warrant was. Of course, Tesan knew and was well prepared. He began quoting the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, which recognizes basic human rights. He stated that if a state agency wants to arrest, detain, search, or seize someone's property, they must have a court-issued warrant. This was outlined in Articles 12 and 16 of the Constitution. He read Articles 12 and 16, explaining that arrest warrants are of 2 types, one issued upon a prosecutor's request and the other, a mandate issued by a court if requested by the prosecution. According to the Criminal Procedure Code, search and temporary release warrants are issued upon a prosecutor's request, if needed. The prosecutor still didn't believe him. Tesan continued, reading the Juvenile Court Procedure, which issues temporary detention, search warrants, verification orders, and similar orders. That was all he knew. He challenged them further, saying he could explain more. The men were shocked. Outside, doctors heard Tesan was a victim. They commented that this room, being his hospital room, was also considered his residential space. The other guys also went crazy with love and yelled at the whole hospital, telling Tesan to go to school. However, Tesan was not concerned about remembering math formulas or English vocabulary, but rather about learning the law. Then, the prosecutor, who was indeed smart, knew they were pretending to interrogate to threaten Tesan. Tesan thought adding more drama would make it more interesting. Even though Tesan was a high school student, these people came without a lawyer. The prosecutor should protect his beloved, shouldn't he? The prosecutor asked Tesan why he was weak. He looked at the prosecutor like he was crazy. He told Tesan to spout his stupid and empty legal jargon. He warned Tesan not to have too much hope because he was protecting the poor. Tesan realized that they were planning to forcibly take him away. The prosecutor ordered Inspector Kim to quickly get an emergency arrest warrant. He didn't want Tesan to keep talking confidently. He would call the court, and the warrant would be issued quickly. Tesan was surprised they dared to talk about the court. Another inspector warned Tesan that he was in trouble, boasting in front of the prosecutor. Tesan didn't expect them to use all their strong moves at once. He knew they were corrupt, but not to this extent. The inspectors asked Tesan what he was saying. Tesan repeated, asking since when inspectors, prosecutors, and judges became so corrupt. The prosecutor was about to hit Tesan. Someone shouted to stop. A doctor entered and intervened. Tesan admired the doctor's courage. The inspector told the doctor to get out of the way. The doctor warned them to leave, or he would call the police. The group told the doctor to mind his own business and leave quickly. They said Tesan had been accused and was a flight risk. They had already requested an arrest warrant. Outside, Tesan's lawyer heard everything. The doctor didn't care. He only warned that if anything happened to the patient, he would be responsible. He asked them to leave. Tesan was moved by the doctor's actions. True to his profession. The group didn't know that all their conversations were being recorded. Tesan started to act again. He pretended his body was in shock. The doctor immediately called the nurse to prepare for defibrillation. Tesan's acting skills were impressive. The inspectors began to panic. Someone called for Prosecutor Kim. It turned out to be lawyer Juntae. He knew Juntae was the deputy general manager. He didn't understand why he was there. Juntae knocked him down with a hit. He fell to the ground. He accused the inspectors of being thugs. The other inspector tried to argue back. Juntae knocked him down too. Both the inspector and the prosecutor were lying on the ground. The doctor and the remaining person were scared. Juntae took out his phone and called their boss. He scolded the boss for not training his staff properly. He questioned the need to send a prosecutor for a high school student's case. Juntae threatened to kick the higher-ups' butt. At school, the school director suggested expelling Tesan. Keeping a thug like him would harm the school's image. The homeroom teacher thought it was premature. What if Tesan was innocent and got expelled? It was also the school chairman's wish. He could make decisions as the school's owner. He said Prosecutor An was arresting Tesan, who was now in jail. The homeroom teacher didn't believe it. The vice principal said they couldn't do that. Disciplinary actions would be postponed until the truth was verified and the court made a decision regarding Tesan. The director disagreed, worried about the school's reputation. The school would also be under scrutiny from the educational authorities. The director criticized the principal for lacking decisiveness and insisted that the school make an immediate decision. He then declared that as of that morning, Tesan would be expelled. He also prohibited Tesan from transferring to another school, stating it was his father's wish, the school chairman. While discussing this, a staff member entered. The director asked what was happening. The staff member whispered something to him, surprising him that this issue had been posted online. At the hospital, a nurse pushing a cart asked Tesan how he was feeling that day. With the hospital's most beautiful nurses taking care of him, of course, he was doing well. One nurse complimented Tesan on being flexible and joked that he must be quite a ladies' man. Tesan flirted back, saying he would have dated her if she were 5 years younger. Tesan was indeed a charmer, and the nurse was flattered. He even ordered pizza for the nurse to have for lunch, to which she remarked that Tesan was very thoughtful. Tesan was not just thoughtful but also wealthy. The nurse asked if that was true. Tesan began to fantasize that the nurse would confess her feelings for him. She just patted his head, commenting on his wealth and how money seemed to be everything to him. She also reminded him to stop playing games and focus on resting, not forgetting to thank him for the pizza. Tesan wanted to object, saying it wasn't a game, but the nurse didn't believe him. Nobody would guess that he was trading stocks on his computer, with a total transaction volume of 10 billion that day. Tesan continued his operations. His profit had reached the maximum capital amount of 20 billion. Who would believe that a high school student could invest in the stock market like that? Tesan looked out of the hospital window. The recent commotion meant that without the doctor's permission, no one could visit him, making the hospital an ideal hiding place for Tesan. He gazed at the cityscape, thinking about the disciplinary council's turmoil. Videos of Tesan being bullied had been uploaded online. Sung-hoon's words in the video were clear. All the teachers at the school watched it. The director was shocked by the existence of this video. The disciplinary committee members turned pale. The principal and vice principal couldn't sit still. Hearing Sung-hoon's father's name, the director started to feel nervous. The principal paid even closer attention. Sung-hoon even mentioned the director in the video. The director wondered how he would escape this situation. In the hospital room, both the lawyer and Tesan were enjoying the video. The lawyer asked Tesan how he wanted to proceed. Tesan smiled benignly. "Let them die for me," he said. The director angrily slammed his hand on the table, drawing everyone's attention. They hoped he would provide an explanation as his phone rang. He answered the call. It was from his father, the chairman, who scolded him, calling him a disgrace. Even over the phone, the entire boardroom was afraid. The principal was furious. The chairman said he would come to the school right away. After hanging up, it seemed the director's fate was sealed. Online, netizens were buzzing more than ever. The president had to quickly announce an investigation into the case. Sung-hoon's father was surrounded by journalists. They asked if he was really putting pressure on the prosecutor and police. He had to publicly apologize for the trouble he caused and then resign from the city council due to public outrage. The prosecutor had to apologize to his boss. The managers and inspectors were all fired, and the district prosecutor's office was demoted. Everything was beautifully resolved thanks to the power of money. Indeed, the world is a wonderful place. On the bus, Tesan encountered his crush again. Life should be worth living, Tesan thought. He asked his crush to hand over her phone. It was the school beauty, Lee Jing. She looked at Tesan, who insisted on holding her phone for her. She refused, and everyone started paying attention to them, causing a scene. Tesan told her that the bag looked heavy, and since he didn't have much to carry, he offered to hold it for convenience. Other female students started to notice, and Jing thanked him. She let Tesan hold her bag. As the bus continued moving, Jing asked Tesan if he was okay, noticing he had a pile of bags on his lap. Tesan forced a smile and said he was fine. It's true that men of any age can act foolishly when faced with their first love. Crush turned to watch the young girls on the bus. Tesan introduced himself as Jang Tesan. She didn't hear him clearly, so he introduced himself again and then shyly looked out the window. She then remembered him. Tesan put on his earphones and started listening to music. Jing remembered Tesan was the student from Jeondu School, who she first saw on the bus last year. He looked very insecure back then, always slouching. He had changed a lot since last summer. As Jing looked back on the bus, Tesan's friends told him to hurry up as they were running late. Upon reaching school, a guy jumped up and kicked Tesan, calling him an idiot for showing up right at exam time. Another guy said he would have stayed hidden in the hospital. Yet another jumped at Tesan, joking that his hiding was over, and burst into tears. The whole group asked Tesan if he had gotten the nurse's number yet, daring him to show his face. Tesan had to beg for mercy. The class jumped in, teasing him, saying they'd only let him off because he was concussed. Tesan was ragged by his friends. Normally, we think friendship and love are expressed through words. Someone asked Tesan if he had studied for the exam. The teacher said there were 5 general education classes in the second year, and last time their class came last. The teacher jokingly warned them not to embarrass him this time. The teacher also asked Tesan if he was feeling better, to which Tesan enthusiastically replied that he was, thanks to the teacher. The teacher smiled. As the school term ended, he wished the whole class well. He advised them to seize this opportunity, or they might regret it later. Only the teacher and Tesan understood the meaning of his words, as once we step into society, we are strictly filtered, from our educational background to other standards. Holding the exam paper in his hand, Tesan was overjoyed. He couldn't stop smiling at how easy the exam was. Tesan felt like he was living a different life compared to his past. On the bus home, Tesan took out a chocolate bar, which he had been waiting for days to give to his crush. Yejin didn't understand. He used the excuse that she had university exams soon and that chocolate was good for short-term memory. The other girls said he liked Yejin, who was very pretty, and they were jealous. Yejin thanked him. Tesan told her to feel comfortable talking to him, as she was his senior. He mentioned that he was only in his second year and wondered if anyone had ever flirted with her like that. Older students started to notice Tesan. He asked her how her exam went. She asked him the same, and he said his went well. Yejin complimented him, saying he must be happy with his high scores. She was surprised he guessed correctly. Tesan asked if she was the top student at Gwangju Girls' School, saying he was the same. The girls behind were surprised to see someone so beautiful and smart. Tesan humbly said it was because the teachers made the exams too easy. Yejin was amazed to meet someone like him. Tesan asked if she used a phone and asked for her number, offering to send her encouraging messages for her university exams. Yejin shyly gave him her number. Everyone was shocked as they exchanged numbers. Yejin got off at her stop. Tesan waved goodbye through the bus window, thrilled to have his crush's number. At the back of the bus, a guy started calling out to Tesan. Another, overweight guy, told him to come over. When Tesan didn't react, he threatened him to come there. At the end of the bus were the tough guys from the Shurjum Wrestling Club. The biggest one among them called me down. His name was Choi Huk-chan. Tesan had seen him in the newspapers before. Tesan wasn't scared and stepped off the bus. Choi Huk was really big. He was sitting and blocking all the space at the back of the bus. Tesan asked him, "What's the matter?" He bluntly replied. The others couldn't believe Tesan was so bold. They cursed, "Are you crazy?" One of them encouraged Huk-chan, "Beat him up." Huk-chan just wanted my friend Jaren's phone number, saying she was his type. Tesan laughed, "What do you mean your type?" Tesan definitely didn't want to give her number to these loudmouths. Tesan flatly refused. The gorilla-like guy then asked what Tesan said, seemingly deaf like all of them. Huk-chan yelled, claiming Jae-jin was his. I thought he was barking too much. They didn't expect me to be so courageous. One of his followers attacked me. Tesan noticed, grabbed his arm, threw him up lightly as if lifting something trivial, and then slammed him down on the bus floor. Huk-chan couldn't believe Tesan did that. He was about to attack me. Tesan warned him, "Don't get worked up. Tesan just finished my midterm exams. Please let me be." Mocking them, Tesan said, "With brains like yours, exams don't matter, but they are important to me." Tesan then challenged them, "If you want to fight, pick a nice day for it." Tesan also straightened my tie. Tesan hoped the idiots understood why Tesan had beaten up their friend. But Huk-chan was furious. He was about to break me in half. The driver, sensing the tension, braked suddenly. He cursed at the ruckus below. Looking in the rearview mirror, he saw me bending at a 90-degree angle. He asked, "What's happening?" Tesan apologized for the disturbance. Hak-chan insulted me, but little did he know that my dream was to be a model citizen. Tesan wanted to live a peaceful life, buy a building, make money, and build some villas. Occasionally, Tesan felt like causing a few companies to go bankrupt. Anyone who dared to meddle in my dreams would be crushed. Another day at school began. The lunch supervisor wished everyone a good meal. The meager portions of kimchi and vegetable soup were unappetizing. My friends complained that even their dogs are better. The supervisor said eating more bean soup was healthy. Rumor had it that the supervisor, the director's lover, struggled to find these soybeans. Tesan saw her buying cheap soybean sauce from trucks outside the market. Tesan put down my spoon. She changed her tone when she saw me stand up, becoming more welcoming. She asked why Tesan had so much left. Warning me that skipping meals could lead to divine punishment, Tesan dumped the food into the trash, saying, "But I'm still alive, aren't I?" She advised me not to speak like that to a beautiful woman, calling it rude. Tesan wished she'd face punishment while still alive. Tesan glared back, thinking the director hadn't changed since our last encounter. She asked who Tesan was. I went to the director's office. He was leisurely eating. Despite my arrival, he didn't stop. He asked how he could help me. Looking at his meal, Tesan wondered how much school money he had spent. Pretending to be benevolent, he told me to speak up. Tesan didn't beat around the bush. Tesan said Tesan wanted meat. He was surprised that Tesan had come to him with such a request. He said if Tesan wanted meat, Tesan could just go out and buy it. But it wasn't just for me, it was for everyone. Tesan brought up his lover, who was in charge of preparing the students' lunch. The director didn't expect you to bring up this matter. Tesan said that over the past year, the school's lunch has been worse than dog food. Students pay $30,000 but don't get their money's worth at all. Tesan compared it to other schools where students get to eat meat at least 3 days a week. But at this school, students only get soy sauce for their money. Tesan thinks this is an embezzlement of students' meals. He wants the students at his school to have proper meals to have the energy to study. Tesan wants the director to file a complaint with the police. After saying this, he asked permission to return to class. But the director didn't want to let him go yet. He thought that even if Tesan was immature, he should still consider how he speaks to adults. Tesan said he was just stating the truth. The director knew he was straightforward, but he didn't expect him to bring up his personal matters. Last time, Tesan spent over $300 million to deal with the Hong Young-hoon incident. Working with a famous law firm is expensive, but they don't solve the problem completely. Now, hearing Tesan's name in this school, the director has to suck up to him. Tesan just wants him to resolve the school's lunch issue. If he can't, Tesan might have to get rid of him. That night, in the VIP room of a bar, a subordinate filled a glass with wine and respectfully offered it to his boss. He asked how to deal with the troublesome Tesan. The boss told him to do whatever he wants, but discreetly. He poured more wine for Hong Song-hoon, wondering why so many wanted to get involved in burying someone insignificant like Tesan. Isn't it true that the more people want him dead, the higher the reward? Young-hoon told his subordinate to be careful, and he'd double the reward. It's not a problem for him. Since Tesan exposed Young-hoon, he's been furious and swore to kill Tesan. Everyone outside the barroom heard his curses. At school, the homeroom teacher hurriedly looked for Tesan. He called him from the teacher's office to the classroom. Everyone was surprised to see the teacher so panicked. Tesan didn't understand why the teacher was looking for him. The teacher couldn't believe what he had done. He showed Tesan his midterm report card with full marks. He wanted to know how someone who usually ranked last in the class got perfect scores. The class thought they misheard when they found out Tesan had the highest marks. His friends were all abuzz. One suspected cheating, another suggested the teacher make him retake the test. The teacher said Tesan had to explain to everyone. Tesan had no other choice, he had to face the consequences. The teacher and classmates all awaited his response. Surprisingly, Tesan soon had to tell the truth. He said he would treat the class to pizza today. His classmates still didn't want to let him off the hook. He added another condition: Tesan would also treat them to a session at the internet cafe. Seeing the offer of food, they quickly changed their attitude. They were as excited as monkeys for the free meal. Tesan's close friends began to praise him extravagantly. One said, "Tesan is very smart, teacher." Another commented, "Tesan works hard at home, really a lot." Someone else exclaimed, "It's just a shock, that's why he's improved." They expressed their trust, saying, "See, you are my brother, so Tesan fully trusts you." They were cheering for him like he was a celebrity. It's true what they say about food being a motivator. The teacher, seeing them swayed by the food, didn't know what to say and let Tesan off the hook. The school cafeteria changed drastically that lunchtime. There were 2 trays of food, including fried chicken. It deserved a perfect score. The lunch supervisor asked the students if they were satisfied, to improve for next time. Since the new supervisor took over, the market has been much calmer. The students even made banners to support her. She always cooks delicious food for them. Moreover, the market ladies also thanked her for buying lots of ingredients for the whole school. After school, the whole class rushed to the nearby pizza place. Each one loudly demanded a supersized pizza, the bigger the better. They didn't want to line up and insisted the owner serve them first. Seeing the students going for pizza, the owner asked if there was a special occasion. They said they were treated by the top students. The owner asked if it was Tesan, surprised that she also knew about him. The owner mentioned her child also attends the school and credited Tesan for its tranquility. She then inquired about Tesan's whereabouts. The students pointed to him sitting outside, gazing at the sky. Tesan politely nodded and greeted the owner when she looked at him. The girls at the table turned to look at him, admiring his good looks. The owner asked if he could afford to pay for the meal. Tesan reassured her, saying he had just made a few billion and could even buy the place. Suddenly, someone greeted him from behind. A girl approached Tesan, asking if he was the second-year student from the nearby boys' school and boldly asked for his phone number. She looked very cute, but Tesan politely declined, mentioning he already had someone in mind. His friends were jealous that he got asked for his number. The girl said, "Just a prospect, right? So you're still single?" Seeing Tesan's reaction, she insisted on getting his number. Tesan was surprised by her persistence. He thought it unfair to the other person, even if it was unrequited love. The girl complimented him for being interesting. Tesan wondered if she falls for every interesting guy she meets. She looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen her before. Tesan noticed her name tag. Her name was Kim Seo-jun. Suddenly, he remembered. No way, he couldn't be mistaken. She was the top star, the idol representing South Korea, Kim Seo-jun, the future center of the group Ford, the most talented golf idol. His friends, envious, wanted to beat Tesan, but he couldn't believe he was meeting the youth of the #1 idol. Seeing Tesan paying attention to her, Seo-jun asked, "How much longer will you make me wait before you admit you've been staring at me this whole time?" This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Not everyone gets an idol asking for their number like Tesan. But someone else called out Tesan's nickname. Surprisingly, Jae-jin also came here to eat. Jae-jin stood there, not expecting to meet him like this. It seems Seo-jun also knows her, the way the girl addressed her might even be more familiar than he is. Tesan was embarrassed to be caught by Jae-jin while getting a girl's phone number. Tesan often sent messages to Jae-jin when not studying, mostly greetings and jokes. Although Jae-jin only read them without replying, it helped her relieve stress. However, meeting in person, she unconsciously called his name. Her friends asked, "Is he an acquaintance of yours?" They also praised Tesan a lot. The guys, seeing Tesan knew many girls, wondered what he ate during the summer to be so lucky. Someone in the class knew Jae-jin had the highest scores in her school. At their school, Tesan had perfect scores. Indeed, like attracts like. Tesan, don't be nervous in front of your crush, be natural. Tesan, with a beaming smile, asked if she came for pizza. His friends insisted she treat them to pizza, just like Tesan. Jae-jin was also compelled by everyone to treat them. Her two friends, Ung and Sarah, introduced themselves. Tesan also did some PR in return. His friend Song, the smartest in school, commented, "I didn't expect Jae-jin to know such a handsome junior like you." She teased, asking if their relationship was just senior and junior. Seo-jun realized she meant senior Jae-jin. The girl emphasized that Taesan's crush was senior Jae-jin, right? Jae-jin didn't expect Taesan's interest in her was because of a secret crush, not just friendship. Tesan, with a stern voice, told Seo-jun, "Keep it down. Why say that Tesan like her in front of so many people here?" Jae-jin, not liking his overconfidence, called Seo-jun's name. The girl immediately took on the role of a cute junior. Jae-jin, feeling uncomfortable, asked Seo-jun, "Are you close with Tesan?" Seo-jun replied that they just met today, which saved Tesan, but then she dug a hole for him by saying he was exactly her type. Seo-jun complimented him for being handsome and smart. Tesan didn't need her praise, it indirectly lowered his reputation with Jae-jin. His friends were pleased to hear a girl compliment him. After exchanging beautiful words, they looked at each other with loving eyes. Jae-jin said she also thought like Seo-jun, a confirmation that didn't make Tesan happy but rather worried him. One guy had 2 boxes of milk, while another had none. Lucky Tesan, pursued by 2 hot girls. Jae-jin asked Seo-jun what she thought, seeing Jae-jin with Tesan, but Seo-jun found the person challenging her not ordinary. The girl approached the 2 of them. Tesan also noticed her gaze. Now, the battle between the 2 women officially began. Seo-jun wanted a fair competition, not giving way just because Jae-jin was a senior. Of course, it would be fair, but wasn't Tesan more interested in Jae-jin? Tesan wondered if he was unlucky to leave the house with his left foot today. Seo-jun just came up with something else. The girl asked senior Jae-jin if he had his phone number, didn't she? How did the little girl know? Seo-jun wants Tesan to give her his phone number too, to be fair. If you're playing fair, things must be done properly. Tesan originally didn't want to give his number to the girl, but sister Jae-jin told him to just give it. Thus, Seo-jun's wish to get Tesan's number was fulfilled. She didn't want to be seen as selfish, only keeping Tesan to herself, so she told Tesan to give the girl his number. In the legendary battle of women's honor, everything must be divided fairly. Crazy. Now Tesan has the number of a famous star and doesn't face any criticism. Tesan asked Jae-jin to give him the phone, and he entered his number for the girl in front of Jae-jin. Knowing it was forced and not Tesan's voluntary action, Seo-jun wasn't very happy. Going back to his school days, being fought over by girls was something he enjoyed. After saving the number, his nosy friends also found it interesting. Now, Tesan is caught between 2 women, one, his first love, and the other, a future superstar. The boys in his class didn't believe him and had no shame. Were they planning to woo both girls? The school's loudspeakers started broadcasting, spreading news of this fiery battle everywhere. In the school's multifunctional building, in the wrestling club's room, Huk-chan was on the phone, hearing some news. The coach asked why Huk-chan wasn't practicing and just standing there. The coach was dissatisfied, as he called but got no response. Approaching to see if something was wrong with Hukshan for not listening, Hukshan, infuriated, hugged the coach's waist, tripped him, grabbed him, and slammed him to the ground. It seems Hukshan just heard something about Tesan, which made him so angry. He even called out Tesan's full name in his rage. This shopping trip, Tesan bought a new car for his father. He also took his family to buy new clothes. Having a brother like him is always a joy. Now, his father's farm had more hired workers and an expanded garden, thanks to Tesan. Tesan also bought an apartment near the school for convenience. Now living in the city center, Tesan could only work in the evenings due to school. He left home to live independently. He rarely attended school, only going when exams were near. Today, he made 7 billion. Tomorrow, this amount will increase to 9 billion. The stock market has been rising continuously. The market value is soaring every day. Now, Tesan can't let his money sit idle. He hasn't yet touched the investments that will surge in the future because it would change the market he knows. Tesan is waiting for the moment he is most looking forward to. Soon, in 2007, a market crisis will occur, and the markets will have to mortgage all their assets. Now, Tesan goes to school to get the top rank and then goes straight home. The school is peaceful now, with no need for his intervention. He's going home to see how many questions he answered correctly. Since returning, school is no longer a hellish place for him. But like any student, Tesan still doesn't want to go to school. Everyone is rushing home, then suddenly stops. Tesan nearly bumps into the boy in front of him. Then Dudong tells him to look at the school gate. Outside, a group of big guys sit like they own the world, blocking everyone's way. They are Hukshan's gang. They're just a bunch of thugs, idlers from the vocational school across the street. So, Tesan became their target. The bald guy, looking like an egg, called out Tesan's name. Tesan wondered if they knew each other to be calling him out like that. Of course they knew, following them was different. Whether they knew each other or not was obvious right there. With this gang, Tesan had to communicate with fists. Tesan told his friends to go ahead, but they wanted to hang around. After watching, they would get to eat pizza. Why not go? He thought they wouldn't dare see him in danger. But who knew? It was getting dark, and they dragged him into a deserted alley. The leader of the group reported to the boss that they had brought Tesan. This gang wasn't short of big guys with big ears and faces, but where did this hentai-looking guy come from? Hukshan sat impressively among his gang. Finally, Tesan's day had come. Hukshan already disliked Tesan's face. Now with the chance, he told Tesan he wouldn't survive leaving. Coming here was a wrong move. No escaping now. Tesan saw these guys brought the whole gang for a small matter. Seeing Tesan's courage, his friends even laughed along. This guy was a good joker. He kept teasing, a pig, but no problem. The tension between the two sides was like a tight string. But this warehouse was strange. Tesan sensed a murderous aura all around. Since practicing martial arts, his body has become more sensitive. The smell of death engulfed him. He asked if they knew how many people had bled in this room. Now, it was time to share some life knowledge. Tesan said it wasn't too late to turn back. He had lived long enough to know life was short. Why waste time on pointless things in this busy, treacherous life? The gang thought he was talking nonsense. They needed to straighten him out. Tesan started lecturing about the law, educating them. But what can you tell a bunch of idiots? Tesan threatened that if he was injured, the minimum punishment was 1 year in prison. Their parents would have to beg him. Plus the treatment costs, as Tesan would only stay in a VIP room, would be expensive. Hearing this, the gang started to waver. It was good enough to teach this to Hukshan. He took out a cigarette and smoked. Look, an athlete smoking. His head could grow in a forest. The guys behind snickered. Hak-chan crushed the cigarettes, saying he would deal with Tesan. Let his followers handle it. Tesan's friends, just standing there, got involved too. Tesan jokes, they're going to take care of me soon. So scared. They told him to welcome it, to keep being arrogant. They weren't old enough for serious violations, so just crying would get the judge to forgive them. So now he said the law needed to be stricter. In South Korea, minors under 18 aren't sentenced for crimes. Hence, the number of victims is increasing. Just wait, Tesan would make them cry real tears. Hak-chan ordered his gang to attack Tesan. They raised pipes, preparing to execute Tesan. This time, it wouldn't be like before. Getting beaten was certain, like watching a chicken burn. His friends didn't expect the gang to be so prepared this time. Tesan pushed his friends back. If he didn't, he would fall and break his beak. The gang seized the opportunity and rushed in. His friends knew Tesan was in trouble, but they could only stand outside and shout his name. The gang, energized like blood-injected roosters, jumped in with force. It was just bad luck. Forget about luck. Blood and teeth flew everywhere. Tesan kicked the chin of the guy closest to him. His teeth flew out, not even having time to say goodbye to the jaw. Tesan stepped on the guy, using him to jump up. It shocked him, they were using iron rods. He almost had to meet his ancestors. After fighting, Tesan posed, like Bruce Lee with a watermelon belly. He told his group to jump in, finish the fight quickly, and then go home to eat. Tesan flaunted his Tai Chi Chuan skills. The Hak-chan gang saw the iron rods but couldn't make Tesan flinch. He ordered them to do whatever it takes. Beat Tesan to death. But was he really the main character? The main character never gets beaten to a pulp. Tesan jumped up, hitting them so they didn't look human anymore. He beat every face he could. Whoever jumped in got thrown out. From now on, Tesan would be the main character on this land. After dealing with the annoying ones, he called out to the guys mocking from behind. Come on in. Oh God, his friends thought, he's tough. Tesan urged them to hit harder. Why so weak as if you're starving? Looking at the guys lying at Tesan's feet, they dared not get up. But provoked by him, they had to try to bring Tesan's body back to Hak-chan. Tesan loved beating up bullies. He said, come on, all in, let's eat. But there was no meal yet, only naked chickens for Tesan to show off. When time was up, not a single follower was left, only Hak-chan. Hak-chan never imagined someone could withstand a gang attack and not get hit even once. The bodies of his followers piled up. Tesan fought like in a movie. He told his friends to call 112 and 119, to report that they were being attacked by a gang, but actually, it was the gang that got beaten. Hak-chan, warned by Sung-hun's followers, knew if he failed, not only the organization but also his followers wouldn't respect him anymore. He pulled a knife from his jacket. Tesan said what he was doing was self-defense, not caring about Hak-chan's threats. Hak-chan charged from behind, trying to stab Tesan to assert his position in the organization. Tesan's friends warned him to watch out for the attack from behind. But when it seemed Tesan would be stabbed, it was Hak-chan who ended up screaming on the ground, holding his hand. He never expected Tesan to counter him, something no one had ever done before. Then Tesan declared, causing injury with intent to kill, organized violence, and serious actions, all this is enough for you to go to prison for years. A man's tears fell, the game over. Tesan called Lawyer Du, saying he was attacked by a group with the intent to kill him. Hak-chan cried, begging Tesan to spare him, as he didn't want to go to jail. Tesan was not easy to deal with, strong and with money to hire a lawyer. Hak-chan's attack on him was like bad luck for 8 lifetimes. The TV reported about a group of students who gathered with the intent to kill an ordinary student. The above-mentioned group assault is an alarm bell for society about the problem of school violence. The issue is increasing, becoming uncontrollable. At home, Sung Hun's followers couldn't believe that if they couldn't handle Tesan, they would now be investigated. The gang member didn't know what to do other than apologize to him. Furious, he threw the remote control at his follower's face. He said, "The news has spread on television, social media, and all media. The organization will surely find out. Tesan is in the hospital again, and the prosecutor has arrested some pretending to be students. Even the policeman he bribed couldn't be contacted." He decided to lay low for a while and retrain his followers. "If you guys make another mistake, you're doomed." The follower poured him another drink. Seeing the obedient follower, he kicked another cup. Outside in the garden, he asked how the drink was. Behind him was an empty garden, and it was raining. Moreover, there was no one out there, so who could he talk to? Suddenly, the power in the room was cut off. His follower pulled out a knife and demanded the person who just spoke to show themselves. A stone flew in, hitting the follower on the head. He lay there unconscious. Now, only he was left. A figure covered in clothes appeared from behind the curtain. He couldn't believe it, as there was clearly no one there before, but now this person appeared. Lightning brightened the sky, making the mysterious figure even more frightening. In the heavy rain outside, Young-hoon's henchman asked who the stranger was. Tesan declared himself as the god of death. He told Tesan he wasn't scared of him. He was sure Tesan knew him and that's why he came. Tesan threatened that he would pay for his crimes. He said, "Confess quickly, or no one will help you." He didn't understand what Tesan meant, wondering why he should confess. He grabbed a wine bottle next to him, intending to hit Tesan, and introduced himself as Park Jae-chun. Tesan punched him in the face, sending him flying across the floor like a kicked dog. He never expected Tesan to correct his face with force. Seeing him still able to talk, Tesan punched him again, one hit on the left, another on the right. Tesan swung mercilessly, focusing on Dae-chun's face. He accused him, "You've killed too many people." Dae-chun denied it, claiming he hadn't killed anyone. Still lying on the brink of death, Tesan was about to punch again when Dae-chun covered his face, insisting he was telling the truth, that he hadn't killed anyone. Dae-chun didn't expect Tesan not to punch but to place his hand on his head. Tesan asked if he could hear the screams in despair of those he had killed. Behind Tesan appeared thousands of dead bodies, crying out in agony, rushing at him like they were starving. All were ready behind Tesan. Dae-chun was grabbed by zombies, all brutally killed by him. The dead waited to drag him down to hell with them. Tesan removed his hand, and the dead bodies disappeared from the room, leaving only him and Dae-chun kneeling. He asked if Dae-chun remembered who he had killed. Dae-chun thought it was a hallucination that Tesan had drugged him. But fate had no intention of deceiving him. Tesan said what Dae-chun saw were the souls of those he had murdered. Tesan placed his hand on his head again. Dae-chun thought Tesan was going to play another trick. He saw the dead bodies again, rushing at Dae-chun on the floor. One grabbed his head, another his legs, another his arms. They tore Dae-chun apart. He screamed in agony. This real feeling wasn't a drug effect. Tesan asked if he had never experienced such pain. He wanted Dae-chun to feel the pain and despair of those he had killed. Dae-chun felt nothing. Tesan felt that people like Dae-chun didn't deserve to live. However, death would be too easy for him. Dae-chun had to pay for his sins. He saw Tesan reaching out to make him feel that. He begged Tesan for mercy. Tesan then asked how many people he had killed. Now, he truly believed Tesan was the Grim Reaper. Only the Grim Reaper could be that powerful. He had seen it with his own eyes, so there was no mistake. Dae-chun shakily confessed to killing 9 people. But Tesan corrected him to 10, including the first murder he had forgotten. He had forgotten about the high school girl in uniform he killed that year. The girl appeared, calling Dae-chun's name. He never expected to be discovered like that. It was a case he had covered up 30 years ago. He had raped and killed that high school girl. Tesan threw him a phone, telling him to confess all his crimes if he wanted to be absolved. Dae-chun obediently agreed, like a dog. Tesan also demanded he confess to assaulting Hong Young. Otherwise, his family would suffer similarly. Calling Tesan a devil, he agreed to everything Tesan demanded. Outside, it continued to rain. Everyone was discussing the case on the news. The police had found several bodies hanging over a dam, including the body of the high school girl killed 30 years ago. The culprit was Chun, a gang leader. He came forward to confess, saying the recent events stemmed from Hong Jang-hook. Now, all the gangs were disbanded. Several corrupt prosecutors and police officers were fired. In bed, Tesan was afraid, hiding under the blanket, only peeking out to check the outside situation. Despite everything going smoothly, he still saw ghosts hovering around. The evening news on TV was debating the case of 10 innocent citizens murdered by the gang. A participant argued that the case extended beyond the city limits. It was serious, and the government was handling it carelessly. Not only the police but also the prosecutors were corrupt. There was a need for a thorough investigation. Moreover, there were suspicions that opposition politicians were involved. They refused an investigation, claiming no involvement. Since dealing with Dae-chun, Tesan had been haunted by ghosts. Tesan screamed in the hospital. He thought everything should be over after resolving the matter. Could he have developed a new skill to see ghosts? But then, if that were the case, his ancestors who appeared were also ghosts, and they had helped him return to the past. Thinking about it gave him a headache. He just wanted to rest. Surprisingly, a ghost appeared under his blanket. Tesan's screams startled the doctors. He couldn't understand why there were so many ghosts in the hospital. Looking through the door, he saw another shadow. Was it another spirit haunting him? When he opened the door, luckily, it was a person. It was Seo-jun, who had come to visit him. She was crying, asking if he knew how worried she was. She had thought she would never see him again. Tesan wondered how she knew he was in the hospital and why she wasn't at school but at the hospital instead. The child said, "There's no point in studying now when we haven't even had the exam. Many just cram everything in one night anyway. Even if she studies a lot, she won't become a star." Seo-jun hugged Tesan and asked, "Does it hurt a lot?" He was about to say he was fine, but then she reached up to touch his forehead. Tesan felt her hand was very soft. Seo-jun touched his face all over, saying, "Luckily, you don't have a fever." But the atmosphere was getting romantic. Tesan looked down and saw her chest pressing against him. He knew getting carried away now would lead to trouble. He pushed her away, but his body was betraying him. His sense of decency told him, "Just go for it, she likes you, so why hesitate?" Seo-jun also felt Tesan's physical reaction. She closed her eyes, waiting for him to initiate a kiss. Clearly, he had feelings for Jae-jin, but now he was also attracted to Seo-jun. She was not only beautiful but also taking the initiative. Another figure appeared at the door. Kissing her in this atmosphere wouldn't be bad at all. Everything turned rosy. Tesan decided to go for it. If anything happened, he would just call it an accident. But Jae-jin walked in, interrupting the mood, and asked, "What are you two doing?" Caught in the act, Tesan quickly pushed Seo-jun aside. He made up an excuse that something had gotten into his eye, and Seo-jun was just helping to blow it out. Jae-jin thought she was visiting Tesan because he was injured, but he seemed quite healthy. She was unnecessarily worrying. Tesan felt awkward, caught in a compromising situation, and thanked Jae-jin for visiting. But the problem was that Jae-jin didn't like Seo-jun at all. Seo-jun politely greeted her, but inside, she found Jae-jin annoying. Jae-jin responded to the greeting, but she wasn't fond of the girl either. They were like entering a battlefield, where polite women only use words to attack each other. Tesan tried to ease the tension. He said, "Please sit down, I'll get you some water." He thoughtfully knew what they liked to drink and prepared it for them. Seo-jun asked Jae-jin, "How come you seem so free for a university student?" Jae-jin replied, "Tesan is injured. No matter how busy Tesan is, Tesan will visit him." They kept smiling and glowering at each other. Tesan had to change the atmosphere. He asked Seo-jun if she had just signed a contract with an entertainment company in Seoul. She was excited and asked, "How did you know? It seems you do care about me." He then turned to Jae-jin and asked, "Did you just finish your midterms? How were the results?" Jae-jin said, "I did my best, but the thesis was difficult, so I'm a bit worried." Tesan reassured her, "You always do well in your studies, so Tesan believe you'll get high scores." Jae-jin felt happy that Tesan was paying attention to her. He didn't forget to encourage her, "You'll surely get into your first choice." Knowing he wanted to ease the tension, but seeing him pay attention to the other made them even more upset. They both told him, "We're done with our drinks, and we don't feel like talking anymore." Tesan wondered, what did Tesan do wrong to make the atmosphere worse? He turned to food as a solution, as eating helps people relax. He suggested, "Let's go for pizza." They didn't care much, saying, "Anything is fine." Tesan told them to wait outside while he changed clothes. But the thought of seeing Tesan's muscular six-pack body made them lose their decorum. They told him, "Go ahead and change, we won't mind." At the stock company, an employee asked the manager, "Have you looked over the profit margins yet?" The manager adjusted his glasses and replied, "Yes, Tesan have." The employees all thought Tesan was a genius. They had seen the orders he placed, which were perfect, and the money used was completely legal. The manager advised them, "We need to diligently regain our honor." They didn't quite understand what he meant. The manager said, "Experienced stock traders like you are not even comparable to a high school student." They couldn't believe a high school student could be that skilled. They asked again, "Is it really as you say? How can a high school student be so intelligent?" Now, as winter began, snow started falling in South Korea. Tesan's family stood on the balcony of their apartment to admire the first snow. It had been a long time since his father had relaxed like this. Tesan noticed his father seemed nostalgic. His father told him, "You will understand this when you serve in the military." Tesan knew what he meant. Snow is just like white dung falling from the sky, isn't it? His father wondered, "You are not old enough, how do you know about this?" Realizing he had slipped up, Tesan quickly changed the subject by talking about their house renovations. "Our house is being rebuilt," Tesan said. He bought the neighboring land to expand the area. Although it was being renovated, it still retained its classic charm. His father said, "We can move in next month." His siblings asked, "Does this mean we will live in an apartment when we attend high school?" "Of course," he replied. "It's closer to the high school, and you can even walk. Maybe I'll buy each of you an apartment." Their mother came over and cut an apple into the shape of a bird for the family to eat. The kids asked, "How did Mom manage to cut it like this?" The apple was from Tesan's father's farm. His father said, "This batch is sweeter, the distributors will surely like them." Tesan's father had become a genuine organic farmer. His mother had also regularly visited the farm to help with the recent apple season. Suddenly, his mother asked, "Tesan, you're still writing novels, aren't you?" Right after she asked, he choked. He could only say, "I just submitted 20 drafts." His siblings took the opportunity to flatter their brother, saying, "Our brother is so talented. Ever since Tesan became successful, their mother didn't have to worry about anything and looked much younger. Tesan gave his sisters envelopes, each containing 200,000 won for their expenses. Having a brother like him is the best. Their parents also often asked Han about his finances. They thought he must work hard, while the family just enjoyed the benefits, but no one was greedy. His sisters were happy with just 200,000 won each. Everyone in the house remained the same, only Tesan seemed to have become a different person. His stocks were now worth over 100 billion won. Because he earned so much profit, the stock company would list him as a suspect. It was also the company he would have worked for in the future. Tesan wanted to talk to his mother. He planned to go abroad for a while to prepare for a bigger plan. His mother wondered, why does Tesan suddenly want to go abroad? He said, I want to travel to gain more experiences for my writing career. But his mother was concerned, is it okay for you to go alone? He reassured her, I'm grown up now, not a kid anymore. When Tesan's younger siblings heard that their older brother was going abroad, they were extremely excited. They wanted to go too and offered to carry his luggage as porters. Can we? They asked. Tesan replied, you two are not experienced enough, stay home and study. His mother asked, have you made your passport yet? Tesan said, I have prepared it already. His mother then asked, do you want me to come with you? He hadn't thought that his mother would want to go abroad with him. Tesan's mother proudly declared, I can speak English, Spanish, and Japanese too. The children were surprised, not realizing their mother was so skilled. You know 4 languages, they asked, as she had never mentioned it before. His mother replied, why are you surprised? Tesan is a graduate of Hongyan University, after all. Tesan was still amazed that his mother knew 4 languages. He felt he knew so little about his own mother. His mother then said, I was just joking. But remember to buy me a gift when you return. Tesan's father added, you kids should thank me for inheriting good genes from your mother, which made you so beautiful and smart. The siblings joked, without Dad, we might have been even better. Knowing they were joking, their father still seemed a bit sulky. Their mother comforted him to cheer him up and hugged him, saying, I love you very much. The kids protested, we're still here, why are you being so lovey-dovey? They were just temporary in their parents' eyes. The siblings also ran over, saying, we love you very much too. Tesan enjoyed this feeling, the feeling of a happy family without worries about everyday necessities. They also reminded their brother, express your feelings too, don't be shy. That night, as Tesan was about to sleep, he heard someone calling him. He opened his eyes and realized he was no longer in his own bed. In the mist, a figure appeared. Tesan asked, who are you? An old man with glasses appeared and said, I'm pleased to meet you. Tesan asked who he was. Seeing Tesan address him as old man, he didn't think he was that old. Annoyed by being continuously called old man, he became angry. Why are you in this shabby place? He asked. The old man explained, don't be afraid, this is my house. Tesan commented, this shabby place is your house? The old man admitted, it looks a bit shabby due to lack of resources. Tesan asked, what am Tesan supposed to learn now? Seeing Tesan's understanding attitude, the old man began to introduce himself. When Tesan was alive, Tesan mastered over 20 languages. Tesan was confused, but for some reason, the old man said there were still 50 languages he hadn't learned. The old man, introducing himself as Chris Badel, a language expert, smiled. Tesan realized the old man was boasting about knowing all these languages. Why is he telling me this? Chris explained that his house looked modest due to limited points. Tesan still couldn't believe this rundown place was his house. The old man knew Tesan lacked language skills and offered to help him. You can't learn languages mechanically, he said. Languages must be learned through human connections and passion. Tesan thought the old man might be a sage but found him somewhat unimpressive. Chris advised, to learn languages, you must first determine your goal. Suddenly, he appeared and started lecturing. He seemed like an unprofessional literature teacher. Tesan couldn't focus on what the old man was trying to say. Chris said, to excel in foreign languages, it's important to choose correctly. Seeing Tesan decide to try, he thought it would be good to see how he does. Chris said, just ask, and he can help. But Tesan wanted to know how to proceed, as normally others wouldn't delve straight into issues with him. Tesan said, don't tell me he's just here to ramble about the issues we just discussed. Seeing him confused, Tesan guessed it must be his first time encountering a mortal. Earlier, Chris should not have revealed so much about himself. If it's because of not having many points that he's in this dreadful place, then he's targeting Tesan to earn more points. Tesan asked Chris, is he really a fairy? He replied, what nonsense are you talking about? Of course, he must be. But Chris lacked confidence. Tesan thought he must find a way to boost his confidence. Chris said, don't mind what he says. But Tesan found him rather talkative. Chris said, in the past, he only focused on studying and did no good deeds. He thought Tesan was asking too many questions. Chris said, if he had more money, he would have donated more. Interrupting, Tesan asked, then why did he become a fairy? Chris said, in his life, he studied languages diligently, so after death, he became a deity. He even mastered the special language of the goddesses. Tesan realized, to become a deity, one must contribute something. He continued to probe Chris for more information. He wanted to know what merit points were and if he needed them. Frustrated with Tesan's incessant questions, Chris said, stop interrogating, he's a criminal too. Tesan asked, did you secretly summon me to earn more points without proper registration? He asked Chris if it's true that points are hard to earn. Chris was surprised that he knew this. Faced with Tesan's threatening look, Chris had no choice but to admit, merit points from Tesan's good deeds are very valuable. Tesan learned that to become a deity, he must accumulate merit points. His ancestor praised him for trying to save a child, recently exposing a gang, and resolving school issues. Tesan's resurrection was already a miracle. Tesan asked, why does Chris talk so much? He couldn't just sit back and enjoy the merit points. Chris said, that's not his intention. As Tesan said earlier, what else did he say? He replied, that's just theory, don't misunderstand him. Tesan said, there must be a give and take, Professor. He asked, how many points are needed? Chris didn't expect him to be so direct. He demanded, 50% of your merit points. Tesan said, if you take them without consent, that's illegal. Chris replied, that's why I'm talking to you, 50% is too much. Tesan offered only 20%, but Chris, being greedy, complained, that's too little. 20% is only enough for building a temple and laying a stone path. At least let him plant some flowers. Tesan thought, maybe 30%? But he quickly added, there's no way it will increase. He told Chris to find someone else, as he could summon others too. He asked Chris if he knew who he would call. Tesan is the descendant of someone second only to the Jade Emperor. He can summon anyone he wants. Hearing about his ancestor, Chris was so scared he fell backwards. Seeing his reaction, Tesan asserted, your father must have a lot of power and influence. Finally, Tesan stopped beating around the bush and raised his offer to 25%. After all, Chris could speak 20 languages. Chris, moved, said, I didn't think Tesan would get that much. He found Tesan very generous and thanked him. But Tesan noticed Chris's home had more of a Chinese influence than a Korean one, despite having many Korean designs. Why didn't he build in that style? Chris explained, he prefers Chinese architecture. The next morning, Tesan began the first step of his plan. He went to the branch office of a bank with branches in South Korea and requested to meet the director with the receptionist. She asked if he had an appointment, but he said he didn't. The receptionist then refused to let him meet the director, as he doesn't meet people without appointments. Tesan wasn't in a hurry. He took out a file from his briefcase. Tesan wanted to propose a big business deal, so he asked her to send the file to the director, warning that he would look elsewhere if missed. He winked at her and said, "Just read it and the director will understand." The receptionist hesitated upon hearing it was a big deal. Tesan remained confident in successful negotiations. The receptionist told him to wait and took his file to the director. Tesan hadn't been to the bank in a long time, as it was near his former company, where he used to frequent. Now, with his status changed, his feelings were different. If before it was just ordinary transactions, now it is different. The receptionist came down to invite Tesan to the director's office for discussion. Sometimes he felt nostalgic, but returning to the past would only be for the first time. He never thought he would come this far. Now he was meeting the director of the Hong Kong bank branch, who only meets directors of large companies. "Don't be afraid, Tesan, everything is just beginning." A foreign man greeted him, the branch director, named Stephen Ben. Tesan introduced himself to the director in English without needing a translator. Mr. Ben complimented his pronunciation, asking if he had studied abroad. It seemed Chris's abilities were working on Tesan. He said he was self-taught. The director's assistant brought in tea. This tea set was usually used only for special guests. Mr. Ben asked if he liked tea, and Tesan enthusiastically replied that he loved black tea. The director didn't expect him to also like black tea, his favorite kind. Mr. Ben said, "If black tea isn't brewed with the 3-3-3 rule, it doesn't taste right. 3 grams of tea, 3 minutes, 300 milliliters of water, that's the standard." Indeed, the tea was made by an expert. While enjoying the fragrant and relaxing tea, the director appeared mature and robust. "It doesn't quite match your age," Mr. Ben curiously asked Tesan. "How old are you?" "You look like a junior high student, but..." Tesan replied, "Next month, I'll be a senior high school student." Both the director and the assistant were surprised by his youth. Tesan showed both his student ID and personal ID, leaving them no choice but to believe him. Tesan finished his cup of tea and politely asked for another. Director Ben had read through Tesan's documents. Seeing the enormous figures, he couldn't believe his eyes. Indeed, Tesan's stock account was worth at least $250 billion. The director went straight to the point, asking Tesan his purpose for the visit. He asked if Tesan wanted to manage a fund, but Tesan clarified that his purpose was the opposite. He wanted to borrow money from the bank. The director couldn't believe someone with so much money still needed a loan. This bank was a subsidiary of the Hong Kong Commercial Bank. The bank had many subsidiaries investing in stocks. Tesan wanted to start a Hong Kong investment corporation. He planned a big venture and needed their help. Director Ben asked if Tesan had ever owned a corporation. He replied no, but he would be flying to Hong Kong tomorrow. Tesan wanted Director Ben to help him contact the headquarters there. The director didn't expect Tesan to aim for multinational business. Tesan's thinking was unlike that of a typical young person. The director agreed, as Tesan was now a major client of the bank. He wanted to know how much Tesan wanted to borrow. Although young, Tesan was treated like a VIP by Director Ben. Tesan stated he wanted to borrow $1 million using his stock account as collateral. Both the director and the assistant were surprised that a student intended to borrow such a large sum. Why be surprised? With $1 million, Tesan planned to rapidly multiply it. At the cafe, lawyer Du helped Tesan register his business license. He told Tesan that teenagers could certainly start businesses, but it wasn't simple. He asked if it was okay, given that Tesan was still studying. What would his parents say? Since Tesan always scored the highest in practice exams and ranked first in school, his parents wouldn't object. To get the certificate and seal, Tesan needed his parents' consent. His corporation could only be established with a family relationship certificate. His parents would be responsible for family finances, while Lawyer Du would handle the asset auditing. He complimented Tesan. Being both a top student and heading a corporation is extremely impressive. Lawyer Du was curious about the corporation's name. Lore? Tesan said, nothing special. It means Legend of the Lord. The lawyer didn't expect the name to be so meaningful. Was the name of the corporation a bit too grandiose? Tesan explained, isn't everyone in this country descended from a lineage? Naming it that way has no profound meaning. Actually, LOR is also an acronym for Return to Legend. The lawyer didn't quite understand. A legend is already quite special. Tesan couldn't reveal to everyone that he was a reincarnated person. Alright, Tesan will step by step become a legend. At a luxurious restaurant on the top floor, Tesan wasn't sure which dish to eat first. Although he couldn't drink alcohol, dining at such a fancy restaurant wasn't too bad. Enjoying a buffet in places like this was also great. Tesan opened a can of Coca-Cola and poured it into a wine glass to enjoy. One should have company when eating out like this, he thought. Someone was approaching Tesan. He looked up to see who it was. A beautiful woman with a perfect figure and mature demeanor appeared before him. He didn't expect to see someone so attractive. She stood in front of Tesan, who was so distracted he accidentally spilled his Coca-Cola. She asked, "Are you CEO young Tesan?" The beauty of a mature woman was always captivating. She introduced herself as Josiah, interviewed by Lawyer Du to become Tesan's assistant. He complimented her beauty, and she thanked him for the compliment. Saya also complimented Tesan for being young and handsome. He replied, "People often say Tesan look younger than my age, but it's not just looks, Tesan am actually young." He enjoyed his Coca-Cola. Saya was surprised that the meeting place was a buffet. Tesan explained, eating together helps people relax. In the 4.0 era, people need to change their way of thinking. Saya didn't understand what the 4.0 era meant. Tesan clarified, "I mean people need to change their old habits. That's also the philosophy of my company." Saya wanted Tesan to interview her on the spot, but he declined. Tesan said, "You can start working tomorrow." Saya didn't expect to be hired so quickly without Tesan even reviewing her resume. Tesan said, "Lawyer Du recommended you?" "That's enough. Reviewing the resume isn't necessary." The company wasn't fully operational yet, so there wasn't much work. If Saya wants to take some extra language courses, she can do so. Saya thought she was hired too easily, wondering if the company's salary was too low. Tesan understood her thoughts. Saya boldly asked, "How much is my annual salary?" Tesan replied, $700 million a year. You're getting a sky-high salary just starting, plus 4 types of insurance. Saya couldn't believe a newly established company would pay such high salaries. Everyone around turned to listen. Tesan asked if she thought it was too little. Saya waved her hand, saying, "This is way too much." Tesan added, "There are additional payments, like bonuses, extra bonuses, a 13th month salary, and holiday bonuses." She then asked, "Is Tesan running a corporation?" The idea of a corporation seemed appealing to her. Then Tesan said, "Not at all." She asked if he was doing any business. He jokingly replied, "I'm a thief." Saya didn't understand his casual remark. Tesan continued, "I will steal all the money in the world." The next morning, at Intrio Airport, people from various countries were speaking different languages, but Tesan understood them all. Overnight, Chris had added even more languages to his repertoire. He bought a business class ticket to Hong Kong. People were slightly annoyed seeing him bypass the line straight to the plane, but they began to admire him upon realizing he was in the A cabin. Someone even asked if he was an idol because of his good looks. The female flight attendants took turns greeting him, flattering him. They listed the privileges of VIP passengers and asked if he wanted to drink. Like praying to God above, "You're still a student, how can you drink alcohol?" So, the flight attendant gave you something, a small folded piece of paper. Opening it, Tesan, it turned out to be a flirtatious letter, complete with the flight attendant's phone number. Even on the plane, you couldn't find peace. Landing at Hong Kong airport, you quickly changed into a suit for an upcoming meeting. Someone called out to Tesan. She was holding a sign with your name in Korean. You responded, and she seemed quite familiar with the situation. She introduced herself as Clay, your secretary for this visit. Representing HSBC, she came to welcome you. You introduced yourself as Daniel and suggested she call you that. Thus, you made another beautiful acquaintance like Clay. Clay escorted you to the company, asking if you had eaten. You replied that you had a light meal at the airport. She asked if you were a thrill seeker or from a prestigious family to take such bold risks. You clarified that your father was just an organic apple farmer. Clay mentioned her fondness for apples. You promptly invited her to visit Korea and offered to show her around the farm and traditional house. You were pleased to meet a beautiful and lively woman like Clay. Wondering how there could still be someone as attractive and fun as her? Observing Hong Kong's streets, everything seemed fascinating. You were curious to see how its culture differed from Korea's. Arriving at the HSBC building, the driver and Clay respectfully invited you out. Looking up at the towering skyscraper, the headquarters of Hong Kong's commercial bank, you thought about capitalizing on the opportunity. At the top floor, key employees praised Tesan's talents. Reading your report, they were astounded by your vast wealth at such a young age. The bank's legal team confirmed your wealth was entirely legitimate, but they wondered if you were a secret heir. All evaluations of Tesan indicated a potential S-level client. Daring to mortgage an immense asset for a $100 billion stock account as collateral for a $100 million loan, you were seen as a promising source of substantial profits for the bank. The assistant advised the director not to worry, as the interest rate was 15% per annum. The deal promised perfect profits, albeit with very strict terms. Clay informed you that the directors were waiting and suggested going in. The department head and director were speechless upon seeing you. Clay announced your arrival as CEO Zhang. They welcomed you to Hong Kong. The man with glasses was Leo Stingwatch, HSBC's financial director, and next to him was Harry Lotion, the department head. Hearing their names, you recognized the director as a member of the British nobility. Standing before the financial conglomerate's director, Tesan remained calm, impressing the director. Knowing your family background, the director asked if you were studying in the UK. You replied that you were just interested in England, acknowledging the Stingwatch family's fame. The director felt a closer connection upon hearing your name. Leo asked Clay to leave so they could speak privately. Feeling more at ease without Clay, you were invited to sit and have tea. You mentioned fondly remembering the taste of black tea from the Korean bank branch's office and requested a cup. The department head poured a cup of black tea for you. Director Leo praised Tesan as his favorite Korean to date. He complimented your excellent and fluent pronunciation. The department head was very curious about you. Tesan said, "Go ahead and ask, I'll answer." The department head asked if you were developing a new stock investment program. He was ready to invest in obtaining its rights. Even the director didn't expect such ambition from his department head. The two of them looked at each other. Tesan said, "I'm just investing instinctively." They couldn't believe instinctual investing yielded such massive returns. Tesan said, "Looking at the charts, Tesan can write which ones to invest in." It's like a divine blessing. Both didn't believe in divine intervention, let alone blessings. The director thanked you for the collateral asset documentation. The bank agreed to let Tesan use stocks as collateral for a loan. In Hong Kong, citizens over 18 can establish a single-member company. The bank offered to assist you with this. Tesan thanked the director, promising not to disappoint the bank. In Korea, foreign investment profits are tax-free. Signing and receiving foreign investment would exempt your company from taxes. Tesan wanted to use Hong Kong as a hub. You plan to open numerous tax-free companies and funnel the money into a Swiss bank for security. This would keep your funds untraceable. The director said the money would be transferred to Tesan's account as soon as the company was established. You were pleased with the bank's efficiency. The director said, "Sign this contract, and all legal, administrative, and settlement services will be provided for free." It was raining outside, and Tesan decided to walk back to his hotel. The rain reminded Clay of winter rains in Chicago. Tesan asked, "Did you live in the U.S. as a child?" Clay replied, "I studied business management in Chicago." Tesan commented, "Your family supports neoliberalism, being Chicago students." Clay was only interested in the strength and bravery of capitalism. The rest didn't matter to her. Clay noticed a change in Tesan's eyes after leaving the office. She asked if something had happened. You smiled but didn't reveal anything. Inside, you hadn't signed the contract. Tesan wanted to renegotiate the terms. The director couldn't understand why you wanted changes. The terms were perfect, with a low-risk interest rate of 15%. Tesan wasn't concerned about the bank's terms or interest rates. The two didn't understand why you wanted changes. Tesan wanted to increase the loan amount. The director asked, "How much do you want to borrow?" Tesan smiled, "I want to borrow $200 million, with an interest rate of 20%, for 1 year." They couldn't believe you wanted to borrow more and even increase the loan's interest rate. The director was astounded by your audacity. Tesan felt there was no sound as pleasant as rain, a sentiment shared by those who cry in cars, not by those happily riding bicycles. Clay preferred the sound of rain at the sea. The traffic light turned green, and the two of you crossed the street. Tesan noticed a brakeless motorcycle speeding towards them in the distance. The driver warned Clay, "Danger, get out of the way." Before she could get her bearings, she was pulled away. With a firm grip, he held her close to avoid a motorcycle collision. He asked Clay, "Are you okay?" This heroic act of saving the beauty in the rain deeply moved Clay. The two of them exchanged a deep, lingering look. As soon as Tesan turned 18, he immediately went to take his driving test. Luckily, he passed on his first try. Now with a license, Tesan was eager to get a sports car and cruise around the city. BMG Investment Limited, a company he secretly established in Hong Kong, stands for Big Mountain. Its English name is Tesan Corporation, which had just merged with a company in America. Thus, tax authorities would take a long time to find Tesan. From now on, he will dedicate himself to making a significant impact in the market this year. The stock market will soon present huge gains and losses. These opportunities are like a double-edged sword. Used wisely, they can change one's life, but a single mistake could lead to ruin. If there's any discrepancy in the data, Tesan will immediately withdraw from the game. Currently, he's investing $3,000 in each transaction. If successful, each transaction could reach $40,000. He's investing everything in crude oil. By January 2007, the market had reached its peak. However, it wasn't until May that they began exploring this market. Soon, everyone will be investing in oil, making the market more vibrant than ever. The oil industry will surge. Import prices for gasoline will rise. Now, Tesan must predict the trends of these two markets to make his trades. Today, his total investment is $47,000. With 1,500 transactions, he could earn a total profit of $713 million. This will be enough to settle his debts with the Hong Kong bank before the due date. He's now checking the interest rates of LOR. Tesan's total assets have reached $750 billion. Tomorrow, with just a click of his mouse, he will shake the entire market. The stock exchange will be in turmoil. The next day at the stock exchange office, an employee urgently calls the manager. The manager asks, "What's the commotion so early in the morning? Is the sky falling?" The employee is shocked to find that all the trading platforms have vanished. The manager is confused. The employee explains, Tesan has withdrawn all his investment funds. The manager wants to know how much was withdrawn. The employee replies, the total transactions amount to 100 billion. The manager is incredulous, 100 billion? Why would he withdraw everything so suddenly? Everything was normal just yesterday. He orders an investigation into where the funds were transferred. All the money was moved to an investment company named LOR through a linked account. The manager asks about the bank's situation. The employee replies, this morning, the main bank had a significant investment fund missing. The manager immediately contacts LOR Corporation. Early in the morning, the corporate office is overwhelmed with calls. Everyone, from banks to securities and stock companies, wants Tesan to invest in their companies. Even the director of the National Financial Department wants to meet Tesan immediately due to an urgent matter. Saya is puzzled, wondering what issue Tesan could have caused so early in the morning. Saya is relieved that Tesan has finally arrived to address these issues. Tesan asks Saya, "Did you bring the coffee to the office?" She informs him that brokers and banks want to meet him. Tesan is surprised that his withdrawal has caused such an uproar. He asks if she has prepared what he requested. Saya replies, "It's all ready. Just go down to the parking lot, and you'll see." Tesan thanks her for preparing the paperwork and instructs her further. "If they call, just hang up, that'll save you from the trouble," he advised Saya. Saya didn't expect him to be so nonchalant about everything. The government will soon find a solution to the financial shortfall. The tax exemption policy for foreign investments over the next 3 years will prevent him from having to pay any taxes for a while. Tesan must now leverage every advantage to make money. He took the elevator down to the parking garage. When the elevator doors opened, Tesan was greeted by his dream car, a brand new convertible Porsche 921. Driving it out on the streets, he knew everyone would be envious. Tesan revved the engine and sped off, leaving a trail of dust for those behind. At the girls' high school, a graduation ceremony was being held for Jean, who had won a scholarship to Seoul University's law school. She was awarded a special prize by the mayor himself. Everyone applauded enthusiastically. She was indeed the top student of her school. The sound of the cheering extended outside the auditorium. Tesan drove his new car into the school, holding a bouquet prepared by his secretary Saya. As Tesan, he came to the girls' school to congratulate Jean on her graduation. Dressed impressively for the occasion, Tesan, the perfect gentleman, was admired by all the girls. Jean had excelled in her studies and won a scholarship to Seoul University. The principal invited her to give a speech on behalf of all the students. In her speech, Jean thanked her parents for raising her, her teachers for their guidance, and her friends for their support. She promised to strive and make everyone proud. When Tesan entered backstage, everyone turned to look at him. The parents looked as if they were seeing their first love, while the girls found him pleasing to the eye. Seeing Jean speaking, Tesan realized he wouldn't have to spend much time looking for her. Jean seemed to notice him and was happy he came. He waved to get her attention, but then someone else approached and hugged Jean from behind. She said she had been waiting for this person, who wanted to take a photo with her. He looked like a successful businessman, a perfect match for her. Her mother offered to take their photo. Everyone's attention made Jae-jin blush, so he joked, "If you admire her so much, why don't you print her face on something and wear it?" Not expecting his crush to be with someone else, Tesan was heartbroken. Jae-jin remarked, "If you keep this up, no one will want to marry me." He said, "Don't worry, because I'm here." Seeing them so affectionate only made Tesan's heartache worse. No matter how beautiful the bouquet in Tesan's hands was, it seemed useless now. Now he understood why Jae-jin hadn't been responding to his messages lately. She had someone else by her side, while he was clinging to memories of his first love, living and dying by them. Tesan was still suffering from this love. Seeing her with another man made his heart ache. Someone approached and said that he was Jae-jin's senior at school. Her father approached and shook hands with another man, saying, "It's a great honor that my grandson is valued by your daughter's father." Her father politely said, "I hope the judge will pay more attention to Jae-jin in the future." The man replied, "These kids nowadays know everything, it's hard to pay attention to them." Tesan realized the man was Judge Lee San-suk, a political figure and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. No, he would later be nominated by the president as the Chief Justice. Both families seemed well matched, as they would both become Chief Justices of the Parliament. Jae-jin's mother called him Young-seo and asked her to stand closer to him. Tesan remembered who he was. Young-seo was the third son of the Anna conglomerate, a young man who excelled in law school in Korea. After graduating, he was considered for a position in the conglomerate and became its director. Online articles described him as a playboy named Cha-nam. Just as the female students started noticing Tesan and approached him for his number for easier communication, he wasn't in the mood and just wanted to be left alone. Jae-jin seemed to notice something on his side, even calling his name. He noticed and knew this, but she was too shy to want him to come closer. Young-seo asked if Jae-jin knew Tesan, but she denied it, claiming to have mistaken him for someone else. Jae-jin then boldly held Young-seo's hand without any hesitation. Tesan realized that women often prefer successful men like him, and as the son of a large conglomerate, he couldn't compare with the son of a farmer. Life isn't fair, the better man wins. Tesan left while everyone else stayed to congratulate Jae-jin. Leaving the school grounds, Tesan looked at the unneeded bouquet, unsure what to do with it. He thought about throwing it away, but then he saw a timid girl, different from the cheerful graduates. He also saw the proud spirits of her parents behind her, happy that their daughter had graduated and officially become an adult. Tesan sighed, still seeing ghosts. The girl was crying alone, missing her deceased parents. Tesan approached her, offering the bouquet to congratulate her on graduating. She was surprised to receive flowers from a stranger. Tesan conveyed her parents' message. They were happy to see her grow up to this day and wished her a happy life, carrying their legacy. She couldn't believe Tesan knew her parents. He left, reminding her to live happily. His flowers found a recipient, not ending up in the trash. Back at his apartment, Tesan drank beer messily, not bothering to clean up. Drunk, he slumped on a chair. Someone tried to wake him from his sorrows, but it was difficult. After several attempts, Tesan finally opened his eyes. Just waking up, he saw a large ghost in front of him. Tesan never expected to have another child, and was surprised to find them at his house. But the person, realizing Tesan didn't recognize him, decided to introduce himself. He was Casanova, a knight from the land of Senka, and one of the most experienced lovers. Tesan began to doubt when he heard this name. Casanova said they had much in common and were quite interested in Tesan. Tesan couldn't believe that Casanova would appear like that. Casanova was a highly respected legend. He proposed a deal to Tesan. Tesan was uncertain about Casanova's identity, as he was born in a prosperous city. At just 15, he became the head of a monastery, and at 16, a law doctor, thanks to his mastery of science. Casanova became a famous merchant, enough to make Tesan want to cooperate with him. In Hong Kong, Director Ben and the manager were surprised that Tesan repaid his debt so quickly. As soon as he finished, he withdrew all his funds from the linked bank account. Director Ben ordered the manager to investigate where the money was transferred to. The linked bank had closed, and they couldn't anticipate Tesan's move. It was Director Ben's mistake, and the manager didn't think Tesan could have planned this. They would investigate. Director Ben was overwhelmed, as few could borrow $200 million like Tesan did. They discovered Tesan's account balance in South Korea was rapidly increasing. He was investing in Nugo stocks. Director Ben asked about the interest rate. The manager replied it was only 1%. They wondered why a risk-taker like Tesan would accept such a low rate. If Tesan chose Nugo, it meant he was aiming for long-term investment or just resting. Director Ben instructed the manager to keep in touch with Tesan through the branch director. Although confused, it seemed Tesan held a secret. On his way to the Tesan Corporation, listening to today's economic news, his investment in oil had already earned 20%. The Lunar New Year was approaching, and the products from Tesan's company were about to launch new products, creating a buying frenzy. His profit would increase to $285 million with 300,000 new transactions. In just a few days, he had earned $400 million, totaling $600 million with his capital. Tesan planned to secretly transfer all his earnings to his secret banks. Thanks to Casanova, he understood market indices, allowing him to invest in areas other than Tesan stocks. Understanding the core values of business, he could easily operate it. His mood instantly recovered after being dumped by his crush. Controlling his emotions was no longer an issue. For Tesan, even breaking up required skill. Now, his relationship with Jean would be just junior and senior, nothing more. He was as excited as when speeding up. Tesan was so stable that he wished for Casanova, who had cheered him up for the new year. Stepping out of his convertible, Tesan was amazed to see his house upgraded to a new level. It was fitting for someone wealthy like him. The old tiled roof was completely replaced, and the dilapidated walls were rebuilt. Suddenly, Tesan found himself missing the old house more. In the house, there was also the barking of a puppy, a dog that was supposed to have died, but now was happily wagging its tail at Tesan. In Tesan's house, the sounds of relatives pleading with his father for help could be heard. They wanted to borrow money from his father as the interest rates would be lower. Tesan's relatives were shameless. They came home for the Lunar New Year but were insincere in front of his grandparents' memorial, only interested in asking his father for money. His mother, in recent days, had to tolerate them the most. When Tesan proved himself to be the pillar of the family, he would shut those people up. He didn't bother to ring the doorbell but shouted loudly, "The eldest son of the parents is back." His mother came out to open the door for him. Knowing what was happening inside, he still asked, "Why are all my uncles gathered here?" These relatives, upon seeing him, didn't bother to be polite, acting as if no one was there. His uncle asked his father to continue the story, inquiring how his father suddenly had so much money and if it was left by Tesan's grandparents. These greedy people were demanding money from his father, showing no respect at all, acting as if they owned the world. Tesan interrupted them to draw their attention. He said, "It's been so long, Tesan almost forgot who they are, and now they show up in my house." These people started lecturing him on how to greet and suggested that a child like him shouldn't meddle in adult matters. Aunt Matcha scolded Tesan for his lack of manners when meeting elders in the house. Tesan retorted, asking why they suddenly appeared, noting that they didn't even show up on his grandparents' Memorial Day and had no right to lecture him. He suggested they should look at themselves before criticizing others. His uncles were incredulous that they were being taught manners by someone as young as him. His aunt questioned who taught him to speak like that, and if it was his mother. Tesan's mother couldn't stand her sister-in-law and had to sit down, leaving Tesan to handle it. He ignored his uncles and aunts, which made them angry enough to stand up and criticize him. These people dared to call themselves adults, which Tesan found laughable. None of them were more significant than his father to deserve respect. His father had endured enough. An uncle attempted to hit Tesan for being disrespectful, but Tesan didn't care, sure it would create a loud scene. His uncle couldn't believe that Tesan blocked his attack. His father had had enough of these disrespectful people. The kind father of Tesan rarely got angry like that. His aunts and uncles were afraid, of course. Tesan's father had to be tough so that those people would not think of bullying. If anyone had the intention of touching his family, his father would flatten them. Those uncles were scared and could not say a word. Tesan had never seen his father so cool. His father asked his uncles what they were doing, and they said, "Why are you so angry with us?" His father said in a stern voice, "I don't dare to be your brother." Now they acted like they didn't understand why he was angry. His father told Tesan, "Don't be rude to the elders, apologize to them quickly." His father also acted like the leader of the house, and told them to apologize to his son. Tesan bowed and apologized, and his aunts and uncles did the same. Those relatives did not want his father to be angry and not lend them money, so they said, "We were wrong just now," and took turns to admit their mistakes to him. Tesan's father said, "If you need money, ask Tesan, he is in charge of the finances in this house now." His father now pushed all the troubles to him to deal with, and went to hide with his wife. The Lunar New Year holiday ended, and the group returned to work. Saya brought a gift for Tesan. Saya and her mother had gone on vacation in Australia during the Lunar New Year holiday. She accidentally bought a bottle of medicine that only men had to use for him. She told Tesan that he always had to work late, so this medicine would probably help him. Tesan looked at the box and saw a kangaroo, and asked if he would become a kangaroo after eating it. Saya didn't know, but it was very expensive, so Tesan should take 1 pill a day. That way, his male problems would be maintained. Looking at this bottle of male enhancement medicine, he thought that only Casanova would suit this type. The end of this holiday meant that Tesan had to go back to school. If Saya knew that he was still studying, would she quit? Tesan continued to study the indicators on the stock market this spring. His stock transactions increased. This time he would participate in a new stock market, so he had to be careful. From now until 2009, the world would shake again. The 2008 world crisis would cause the U.S. economy to falter. The U.S. Federal Reserve began to increase the value of its money supply. The economies of other countries would decline, but the U.S. would still maintain the value of its currency, and become the top one of the world's economic powers. He had to be very careful at this time, because if he was careless, he would miss this opportunity. Currently, real estate prices were falling, but Tesan knew that in a few years they would continue to rise. If he got involved, he would easily be targeted by others, but Tesan only needed to stay in the shadows and influence the prices, and he would soon dominate all economies. And the economy always had to follow the influence of money. Whoever controlled the money would control the world. Saya was counting the money that Tesan had used. The company card payment, all of which were spent on paying for things from grocery stores, paying for the net monthly, and then paying for pizza. Saya wondered, why would a CEO like Tesan use a card to pay for such trivial things? And Saya also didn't understand how Tesan could eat so much by himself. She thought, could it be that Tesan was dating a girlfriend? This thought of Saya was absurd, because even if there were 2 people eating like this, it would be too much. Lawyer Du looked at the expense report and understood the reason right away. He felt that it was not appropriate to tell Saya the truth yet. Looking at this expense report, the problem was that Tesan didn't come to work for the whole month. She was even more puzzled by this mysterious CEO. She hoped that he didn't fall into depression and decided to eat a lot, to the point of overeating, to ease his heart. When he got home, Tesan was still working continuously. He didn't understand how his friends could eat so well. They spent the whole day at the net cafe eating pizza, and now he felt like vomiting when he saw pizza. Usually, students would go out to eat after studying, but even though the school food was nutritious enough, his friends still ate like pigs. And of course, the person who paid for them to eat was Tesan. Now he could buy all the snack shops if he wanted to. Today was an important day for the stock market. The U.S. market would open for trading early in the morning on the first day of April, which would be 10:30 p.m. in Korean time. Now he just had to count down the hours until the trading session. Tesan had saved up all his money for this moment. His funds and bank accounts had reached 1,000 billion. He would spend all that money in one go today. Today would be the day Tesan made his debut to the world and let them know of his existence. Last week, he had disrupted the entire stock of New Chelsea by short selling it under the form of margin lending. Today, he would buy back the right to sell the stock under the field of New Chelsea. Now Tesan would fire the first shot at the sudden changes in the stock. He started counting down to the trading session. Tesan couldn't miss any moment. A miss is as good as a mile. Tesan had to be fully focused to do it. And now the U.S. trading market has officially opened. Unlike the Korean stock market, the U.S. stock market only went up and never went down. But now all the indicators were falling sharply and there was no sign of rising. Even the big companies in the financial and securities sector had to accept that their stock prices plummeted. The U.S. economy officially collapsed, dropping 10% as soon as the trading floor opened. From now on, the big players in the industry officially fell to the bottom. But he couldn't rejoice for long before Tesan was pulled up to the fairy world. He didn't know which god or fairy had noticed him again. It turned out that Chris summoned Tesan out. Seeing him look happy, he guessed that something fun must have happened in the lower world. Chris was not like the cunning Casanova. Tesan could easily play Chris back if he wanted to. Chris congratulated him on leveling up, but Tesan didn't know what the hell he leveled up. He knew he had just messed with the world's largest economy. But Tesan's body didn't feel any different. Could it be that only fairies could see it? Chris could see the halo around Tesan brighter, but he didn't see anything. And why did this old man call him up when he was doing fine? Chris just wanted to bite his head off because he always thought badly of him, but he was holding something that made Tesan interested. A language that Chris had just discovered would make Tesan go crazy, he thought. He didn't care much about languages, but his parents had taught him to be polite to the elderly, so he pretended to be interested. Chris had discovered an ancient language that had been passed down for a long time. It was the rune language, the language of the ancient Norse gods. Tesan had heard of this language in novels and games. It was the language of magic. Whoever understood this language would have magic in their hands. Seeing Chris's confident face, he must have mastered it already. Could it be that Tesan would be able to use magic after learning this language? Chris was sure he had succeeded in arousing Tesan's curiosity, but he couldn't let him be pleased. He pretended to be very busy now, so he had to go home and had no need to learn. But Chris said he would try to teach him quickly. Now the $1 trillion last night had made 5 times the profit, and so Tesan's money kept increasing exponentially. He had become a legend of the financial world. Even the legends of Wall Street had to call Tesan grandpa. By 2010, people estimated that $21 trillion would be invested in tax-free countries. His $5 trillion was just a grain of sand in the desert. Tesan was not satisfied. The phone on his desk suddenly rang. It was his sister calling. She asked him if he was working or studying. She wanted to do something to snack on tonight, and she wanted Tesan to join. His sister wanted to cook tteokbokki, but this dish was only eaten when there were guests, so he asked Is anyone coming over? Two of his sister's friends also came over, so Tesan would go to his sister's house later. He understood the problem, then he hung up. The food of the two twins in his house was delicious. He felt hungry just thinking about it. But he only ate the food his mother cooked, and Tesan only knew how to cook ramen. But suddenly someone asked him if he wanted to learn how to cook. He turned around and saw someone summoning Tesan. Finally, it was not those boring old men anymore. But Tesan still didn't know who it was. And why did he cross over to a Korean kitchen in the ancient style? The woman welcomed him to her kitchen. Looking at the station for dishes in the feudal style, the stove still had to rely on human power to light it. The woman introduced herself as Chef Kim, the only woman who had succeeded in becoming the master of the royal kitchen. So Chef Kim also became a fairy? Why did they keep appearing in front of Tesan like this? Chef Kim didn't believe that Tesan knew her. Of course Tesan knew, not just him, but the whole of Korea knew her. They called her Chef Kim. The people in the lower world called her name very respectfully. Tesan didn't understand why she suddenly appeared. But Chef Kim said she appeared according to his wish. But what the hell did he wish for at this time? But Chef Kim said, didn't he want to learn how to cook? How could the fairies hear his thoughts? Tesan just wanted to eat tteokbokki. She explained, fairies could do anything as long as it was within their power, so listening to his wishes was a small matter. And those who needed merit points, like Chef Kim, would always pay attention to these issues. Why did even the big chef need merit points? Why did they like Tesan's points so much? The big chef explained, because Tesan had a lot of merit points, he became the focus of attention of many fairies. Although the big chef could cook to earn points, those points were not as many as the merit points earned from humans. Therefore, the fairies liked Tesan's merit points very much. The big chef explained in detail the reason why. He was careless and got called away, but he still didn't understand why the fairies approached humans for merit points. The big chef advised. When Tesan died, he would understand. He had turned green once already. Although he was not a disciple of any god, he could communicate with them. This was a bit rare, as the big chef had also met some disciples before. There were still many gods that Tesan didn't know much about. The big chef told him to be careful, because not all of them were trustworthy. They were all cunning, and could trick him out of his merit points at any time. The big chef also didn't forget to praise his ancestor as very powerful, but she forgot that she was not his ancestor. Well, since he was here, he might as well start working. Tesan bowed, hoping that the big chef would take care of him. The big chef was also very happy to guide him, and then she asked for a deal right away. He agreed without any problem. Then the big chef started to explain the purpose of cooking. Tesan didn't want to learn any theory at all. Then the big chef also mentioned Sanwonmore on Mount Juji that he didn't know who he was. He finally found out that he was the old man who taught him martial arts when he first arrived. At the twins' apartment, his sister, Tesan chopped onions skillfully, lined the pan, and performed in front of his sister and her friends. He was so professional that even the chefs had to worship him as a master. The kids asked his sister, was Tesan a chef? But the girl said, he only knew how to cook instant noodles before, but now he looked even more blurry than the food. He looked like he was going to compete in Master Chief. Seeing a handsome guy standing in the kitchen like this, which girl wouldn't be smitten? They even fought to be Tesan's wife. A delicious dish, cooking well, must be delicious. Although the big chef was not his ancestor, she was very enthusiastic about Tesan. But he couldn't think nonsense, because the big chef could read his thoughts. Tesan's dish was finished. The way he decorated it looked like a 5-star restaurant dish. Tesan said, this was the first time he cooked, so after they finished eating, they should give him some feedback. The kids looked at the dish that was brought out and couldn't believe that this was the tteokbokki they usually ate. It looked so good that it must be delicious enough to lick the plate. Each of them tried a piece and couldn't believe it. His sister dropped the plate on the first piece, and the others also had strange expressions. Tesan thought the kids were poisoned. He asked anxiously, "Are you guys okay?" He didn't understand why they cried after eating. Even his sister couldn't speak because of crying. He wondered if there was something wrong with the food he cooked that made them cry without saying anything. Finally, they gave him some feedback. He was eagerly waiting, and it turned out that his food was awesome, so delicious that they wanted to cry. Tesan was shocked. He thought the food was toxic or something. Then they fought over the food while crying. He told them, "Eat quickly, it will taste bad when it gets cold." They even praised his tteokbokki as the best in the universe. He also tried it, and asked, "Is it that good?" He only had one bite and he also shed tears. He thought, "Did I make this? It's so delicious that I can't breathe." After eating, he had to take responsibility for the tteokbokki dish that he made for his siblings. Luckily, his sister defended him, or else he would have been eaten by them. He earned a lot of merit points for cooking for the girls. After enjoying the food, he had to go back to work. It was night time, but he still had to work hard to make money. It was time. He opened his computer and he was ready to make the stock markets crash. Now, he had to earn two things, money and points. He started to pay attention to the real estate market. The real estate transactions were always stable, but they could easily avoid taxes. He looked at the chart of the real estate value, and it had increased 50 times since his last investment in late 2007. The chart had some drops, but he didn't care. This time, he targeted the Canadian market. The value of the Canadian market was also affected by his transactions. He continued to increase his trades, and the more he traded, the more money he made. From now on, the game was over, and the money of the countries that invested in the Navy had to go into his pocket. He transferred the money from the Canadian market to the Japanese market, and invested a total of 1 billion yen in the second largest economy in Asia to make a profit of 4 billion. The rest in the Canadian market was used for other transactions. A few days later, he sold the stocks under his name and returned $200 million to the student bank, both principal and interest. From now on, he was not bound by any lenders. He was free, which was one of his work mottos. From now on, he just enjoyed the pleasures of being rich. The Korean stock company was once again shaken by him. The staff always monitored his activities, but they couldn't track him anymore. He canceled all the transactions on the Korean market, and he sold all his stocks in one night, leaving the staff clueless about how to face their managers. Now, his stock account only had 10,000, and all the linked accounts were cut off. He came and went like a storm, and all the stock players followed him, even though they didn't know him, but they all admitted that he was awesome. Everyone decided that they had to find him, and they couldn't let him disappear. An investigator found out that Tesan had moved to the foreign market. The investigator reported that one of his friends in the foreign company said that Tesan had transferred 100 billion to his personal fund. The manager asked, "Are you sure?" The investigator confirmed, "This is Tesan's money." The manager asked, "What about the L.O.R group?" The investigator said, "There is no movement, their transactions are fine, a little fluctuation." The manager said, "You should have gone to Tesan's company, you lost all your hair." Then the investigator also jokes, "If L.O.R hired me, I would also be a dancer, quit my job right away." But who doesn't want Tesan's money? He is already rich in the domestic market, but he also plays the foreign market. I wonder if it's okay. Maybe Tesan will change his title from stock god to foreign exchange god. It's almost summer vacation, his senior year life is very peaceful, not drama like the upperclassmen. Everyone, although under pressure from exams, can still smile. They always have to smile. Tesan asked his mother to represent him and order an air conditioner and a fan for each class, so that it would be cool, not like this summer, they would only sweat. The kids in the class always praised his mother to the sky. His charity work and anonymous scholarships helped him earn more merit points, but he still didn't know how to calculate this point. Today is the day Tesan closes his Korean stock account. At this time the Canadian market will fluctuate more than the Japanese market. His friends didn't know what he was calculating, so he was so absorbed. Their carefree and cheerful friend was gone. Although Tesan had more money now, they also felt he was more quiet. They were happy to eat and play net, but Tesan was still like before. It would be better. The flip phone in Tesan's bag suddenly rang. He opened it to listen, and a loud voice called his English name into his ear. Tesan was startled. He didn't remember who called his English name. The person on the phone asked, "Don't you remember me?" Hearing this voice, it could only be Clay. Oh my God, why did Clay call at this time? He remembered the rainy night, and the vibration that the weather brought. Tesan and Clay's hearts both missed a beat. They looked at each other affectionately under the rain in Hong Kong. Tesan gave Clay his first kiss. Now his friends saw him speaking English. They thought he must have picked up a foreign girl. Clay asked what he was doing. Tesan couldn't say he was going to school, so he casually said he had just finished breakfast. Director Ben sent his greetings to him, so she wanted to pass it on. Clay asked if he didn't remember her.